Good evening and welcome. This is the Budget Finance Committee meeting for February 27th, 2018. Tonight is a department head review, cost center review, and we are allowing the selectmen to speak tonight in addition to the members of the committee to make it formal. A couple of housekeeping details. Number one, there is a change in agenda. I am dividing the TIF into two nights. Tonight will be a part of the TIF, and next week will be another part of the TIF. Lake Region Explorer is in that first part. They'll be speaking tonight. Dana has an excused absence tonight, and please stay on point with your questions. If we're ready, Lake Region Explorer, you have 3 minutes. Yes, please. Introduce yourself.
So I'm Rick Harbison. I'm a planner at Greater Portland Council of Governments. I'm here with Zoe Miller, also of Greater Portland Council of Governments, and we provide, I'm just turning on the timer here for myself. We provide planning services to RTP for the Lakes Region Explorer and other transit agencies in the region. I've got a couple handouts. So just wanted to give you a quick update on how the year has been and what the funding request is. So in the handout, you'll see overall the ridership is up this year over last year. We're up to about 9,500 boardings over the course of the year. And that's about 500 more boardings than there were last year. And we're almost getting to the 10,000 per year mark, which is would be a nice round number for us to hit. Ridership is, when you see that, you'll see that ridership is a little bit higher in the summer. We get a bit of a summer bump. I think partly with tourists, and we also get a fair amount of camp counselors and just more activity in the region in the summer. As far as Raymond ridership, the stop here in Raymond is at Sunset Variety. In fiscal year 17, we had 932 boardings there, which is up from 852 in the previous year. So in addition to ridership, just some other stuff that we've been working on. This year, we were able to get text alerts on the bus. So people that ride the bus regularly, they have a text number that they can text, and they get an update. If the driver's running late, he'll let them know. It just provides a little bit more communication about the bus. We've got the bus route up on Google Transit, so the bus stops show up in Google Maps. And then we're working on real-time GPS for the bus. So there's an app on a smartphone, and you can see where the bus is at all times and how far it is from the stop and what the timetable is. So that's what we're working on for this coming year. RTP is also going to be purchasing a new bus, so that's exciting news. RTP, they got an award, National American Development Association Awards, National Award for operating the bus. And other highlights were RTP is joining both of the Chambers of Commerce this year, and they place ads in the Regional Guide. They do an ad in the Raymond brochure, doing an ad in the Lakes Region TV, getting the word out about the bus. And just quickly, the funding request is the same as it has been in previous years. It's almost just shy of $10,000, and that's being asked for each of the 5 Lakes Region towns that are served by the bus. And that totals about $48,000, and that represents a third of the budget of the bus. And it's important to have the local match, because then that...
Found on the web for what's on the bus, some people.
I think that's it. So so it's important because that unlocks the Maine DOT and FTA dollars that we need to keep the bus going. So just a quick update. Happy to answer any questions. This is my phone.
Clearly you're right on the 3 minutes, so that's good.
All right.
Okay, questions from the Finance Committee? Go ahead.
2 questions, and my guess is you probably just answered one, is I was going to ask about the Greater Portland Council of Government, the GPCOG $18,000 budget line as an expense.
That's not the topic of discussion. It's Lake Region Explorer.
Oh, no, sorry, this is part of the Lake Region bus.
This is Lake Region Explorer discussion.
Yeah, we provide planning services to RTP for the bus, and that's the $18,000.
And that's the 18,000 that's in their
there.
budget. Okay, thank you. And then the second thing was,
Yeah.
looking at the ridership, what I was trying to do is decipher, because you have boardings for Raymond, and, obviously the boardings in Portland, the 3610, those boardings are then being distributed around to different towns. My question was, if you look at your total boardings, not including Portland, that's about almost exactly 6,000 boardings, but you only have 3610 boarding in Portland. And I'm wondering, do you have any understanding of why there's more people kind of coming into Portland than utilizing the bus to come out? And in fact, have I read this the correct way? And I know I'm getting really into the weeds, so it's okay if you don't have it.
So
What I was
people are-
the reason I was asking the question was to try to determine how many total boardings are there a day that are either starting in Raymond or ending in Raymond. I was trying to guess at that.
So the boardings that start in Raymond, that's the 932 figure. That's people that are getting on at Sunset Variety.
Right.
And
And they
then-
could be going to Bridgeton, but more likely probably going,
Yeah,
that's
so
probably the
Portland
answer.
is the most popular destination. Most people
But
are
they could
going
be going to
there
Bridgeton.
for work or
Okay.
whatever. And so that's where everyone's getting on at Portland to get back to Naples, to Bridgeton.
Okay.
Yeah.
We could provide
We could
the lightings
provide
as well.
maybe
don't
the
have
departures from, yeah.
If you
lightings.
have that, it'd be great to see, because
Yeah.
I'd like to see what's the total count, because then we can start to do the calculations on what's a cost per rider type of calculations.
Sure.
Thank you. Thanks, that's it for me.
Mr. Richards.
Did you say, and I think you did, that as you get the 5 towns and you get their contribution, that it needs to be at a certain level to be able to trigger the contributions from other organizations, is that correct?
Yes, yeah,
And what's that number if in fact there's 5 towns and it's somewhere around?
that's a good question.
50,000.
That would be a
I
jack.
mean, are we in danger of getting? too
I mean,
low,
in the
or-
past, so we've been able to meet it with what we've had in the past.
Okay,
So,
all right.
yeah, but I can have Jack at RTP as the executive director. I could have him follow up with you on
But the
that.
key is they expect that the towns to contribute something
Yeah,
in this joint effort of which
Exactly.
they would pay about 1/3. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Selectman? Yes, sir.
So if my math is correct, you have 5 trips a week,
mhm.
right?
5 days a week, yeah.
5 days a week.
So four round trips.
Right,
each of the
5 days a
yeah.
week. 932 people from Raymond, supposedly.
Mhm.
That's 4 riders a day.
Depends
So-
on how you do yeah.
So if I take that 9,600 you're asking for, that means we are subsidizing $10.30 per rider on every trip.
If you
Is that
do-
a good investment on your part? Do you think that's a good investment? Because I sure don't.
Well, I think that's what I was trying to get to the number, because I think it's actually a different denominator that we'd use for that calculation. Because those are only showing the people getting on in Raymond. It's not including people that might be getting on in Portland and getting off at Raymond.
My
So-
concern is people getting on in Raymond, because those are the Raymond residents.
But
We
a Raymond
assume-
resident would also use
or-
it for a return trip.
Or it
is
could
what I'm
also be
suggesting.
someone who came out here and got on in Raymond, rode their bike around here
Sure.
and then got back on. May not even be a Raymond resident, but we are subsidizing to the tune of $10.30 per rider.
Per round, yes, but then there
Per
is a
rider.
round trip component to it, as long as we see it not as a single leg.
Well,
Most people are
That's
using
not
the
what
bus
this
in a
document
round trip
that's not
type
what
of,
this says. There's
No, it's not what this says.
932 riders.
which is the reason I had asked the question, because what this is showing is a number of people that boarded
Right.
in Raymond.
Right.
Do you not want to include someone who getting on in Portland and is getting off in Raymond in your consideration of the calculation?
No, because then you'd be double counting them.
Okay.
But what if they're the same person?
But they're boarding in Raymond at one of the legs.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're doing it per rider in a round trip concept. That's, okay, that's fine, that's fair.
And I think, I think a lot of the communities that we work with on transit.
I'm sorry, who are you?
Oh, I'm Zoe Miller.
Thank you.
Sorry. So I think a lot of the communities we work with see transit as an investment in meeting the needs that are expressed by residents. We've heard a lot from, folks who say they want to live in a community where their transit is available. For instance, in Naples, they were talking about, they see it as a economic development tool. And so I think that, the hope is that over time, we're able to tap into different types of ridership so that there can also be folks coming out to, say, to use some of the beautiful beaches and lakes in Raymond. So, I mean, I think looking at it as a per person amount is one way of calculating it, but I think there are some other values that it brings.
But you're charging people from Bridgeton and Raymond the same as you're charging from Bridgeton and Naples, the same as you're charging Raymond people. Yet Bridgeton's 25 miles up the road.
Mhm.
And they're paying the same thing. So in reality, when we don't have the same ridership, for them, it's a bargain. For Raymond, it's not.
Yeah, I think that was a decision to keep it simple, and so
But
you don't have the
most
driver
mass
asking.
transits don't work that way. If you go down to Boston, the further out you are, the more you're gonna pay.
I think, I think transit is a little different everywhere, and this route is unique. For a lot of places, it's one of the longest routes we have. It's an hour and a half up to Bridgeton.
Yeah.
So
That's why they should be paying more.
yeah, I mean it's not off the table.
So-
It's
I mean, when I look and I have 4 riders a day from Raymond, that's not a good investment. I can understand why people from Bridgeton take it. For $3, that's a heck of a deal. But I just don't see it as a good investment for Raymond.
Okay, any other questions?
Yeah.
Yes, Ralph?
Is there any data on the load per run? In other words, are you running morning and evening when you're full, and the 2 midday runs are next to nothing?
that's pretty close to what it is. So the morning run is there are a lot of folks, maybe 15, 20 people at certain times, and then the return run in the evening also gets the most folks. The ones that are a little harder to fill are the second run. The mid-morning run and the later evening run don't get quite as many folks.
I mean, have you looked at eliminating one of those midday runs because it's so underused?
I'd have to look at the numbers, but I mean, I don't think it's so underused that it would make sense to eliminate.
Or, I mean, the other way you look at it is say, if you're looking at it from a total cost standpoint, if Bridgeton only has morning and evening riders, but you're still taking that total run, is that cost effective either?
I think that RTP is constantly looking at the cost effectiveness of the operation, and so I think that's a good question that we can certainly bring back to Jack and the team, and trying to balance keeping the service accessible for people who are getting to school and getting to work and getting to other needs with balancing the costs. So.
Anything else? Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, public safety is next, and we're going to do this in 3 parts. We're going to do the normal budget. We're going to do his capital improvement presentations, and then we're going to do the memo that he sent out to the town manager on salary increases for per diems.
Can I jump in just a second?
Sorry?
Can I jump in here quick?
Yes, you may.
Bruce, I'm gonna jump in front of you quick. You guys do not get this. The paper that you guys have in front of you, you got that. I sent out questions to Dawn, and Bruce answered back some questions regarding salary increases. Like the questions were, did you get it? Oh, okay,
yeah.
all right. Bob, are you the only one that didn't
I'm
get it?
pretty sure I blasted, sent it out.
Okay, all right, and it's asking, do you guys have a set rate that comes in? What are your pay increases? How does the union fit in with this? Merit pay system, that type of thing is what it is. Bruce and Dawn sent information back, and I had more questions, and I'm like, oh my God, I don't even know where to begin, so I kind of walked away from it a little bit. And Rita sent me this today, and the thing that she sent to me, it breaks down like the minimum wage, and actually I'm just gonna quick show you. She just said I've attached a spreadsheet which is showing pay rates increases for most of regular fire department employees, including their date of hire. As you can see, the next column contains the rates for the most current pay period. The further column, 7/6/17, is where they were at the beginning of the fiscal year. Their merit pay was issued on 9/14/17 because that is when the performance reviews were completed and returned to Rita. The other columns show only the weeks that a pay increase occurred. So I just want to make sure that email I just got today and didn't get out, because we couldn't bring up the document, and I called Sue, and that's why I asked her to bring that. So I just wanted to put that ahead of what.
All right, since you brought that up, I want to bring in one point here. Bruce,
Yes.
this particular chart shows hourly wage. Do we pay a minimum of 4 hours to any one of our people, or is it just time
No.
served?
Time served. So if someone's working an 8-hour shift, they're getting an 8-hour pay. If they're called out for an hour, we get, or anything under an hour, it's a 1-hour minimum.
Okay.
But that's the only portion that's rounded. So anything an hour and 15 is
So we're
paid
not
to the
looking at
minute.
a guy shows up for fire at 4-hour minimum?
Nope,
Okay.
nope, not at all.
You may, go ahead, proceed. Thank you.
As I make a note, because it reminded me of something, so anyways, thank you. Well, here we are again. We've put together, again, what we feel is a budget that's very responsible and in consideration of cost increases that are uncontrollable to us. And then we made some adjustments within the line item budget for those items we are close on or will run over on, and to make it more realistic in those particular line items. As you see in the cover letter, we're also looking for membership, which kind of ties to the pay in some respects, but it is an ongoing concern for us. There are times when we do wonder how many people we're going to get, if it will be enough, and that includes our mutual aid companies, because everybody's dealing with the same exact thing. We're all fighting for a finite pool of people who are, one, interested in, or two, qualified to do the job on the call member level. We had a couple of big things that happened to us this year. We achieved our ISO Class 4, which in the commercial district should drop your insurance ratings. And in your own home insurance, you may want to just call and check and see if it will make a difference. A lot of times in the outskirts, because we don't have a water supply out there, it won't make a difference. We also hit the
I did, and they said no.
You did, and they said no. Yep. Yeah, and there is no water supply within the 1,000 feet, so the hydrant district would really take it. And some companies just don't, so check around too. It may apply there. We also had a banner year call volume-wise. We hit 908. We had a lull at the very end, which was a very welcome thing for us, because we were running pretty ragged for a while. It was pretty steady, and I've never seen call volume quite like it. And our Fire Rescue Association's fundraiser for the year this year is to provide some more of our cancer prevention materials, and will provide us with some tools that will help to decontaminate our people as well as our equipment. And that's going very well, and that will also subsidize and add into equipment that we're able to purchase and not impact the budget. As far as the operations budget goes, I think there's a little bit of an increase you may see in the building maintenance line, and that's one that's always a concern. As we look at a building now that's 15 years old, we've already replaced our main boiler system. We've replaced 2 of our AC condensers outside. There are 2 more to go. We've replaced several of the fan units within the air handlers in the attic because they've let go and thrown shrapnel through the siding of them. But it's at that time nowadays where things just don't last the way they used to. So, in a nutshell, that's what I have for you on the budget, and entertain questions. So, yeah, I figure you guys have plenty of questions. Why not?
Stuck to 3 minutes. Debbie?
This building maintenance, Bruce, is that both buildings, the one on?
That is
up
both,
to and
correct.
here?
Yes, it is. Covers both. Now, this building up here, the systems are actually newer that are in this building because we remodeled this about 10 years after the other one was built. So,
Okay, so you're saying most of the work needs to be done to the one down on 302?
yep, unfortunately, that's where we're at. We've had door opener failures down there this year. That was another big one. And we expect more and more of those. Things just seem to break at the 15-year mark for some reason now. They just don't make quality stuff anymore. It's ridiculous, but unfortunately the truth.
Right.
Bruce, on
Yes.
utilities, 70-25, anticipated CMP increases. I
Mhm.
haven't been able to anticipate mine at home. They've doubled and they come back down again.
I know.
What kind of factor are you using there? I don't know
Well,
if it's like that for you.
I'm using what I experience in the fluctuation at home, but I'm also using what we see in our bills for the station. We know that what they've said is they will be going up because of the storm and the damage to their infrastructure, so number one. But number two, we keep seeing our bills down at the station, no matter what we do, they keep edging up. And we have automatic light turner on or turner offer things everywhere now. We've gone to LED light packages because they burn about a quarter to a half of the electricity. We've got a more efficient and effective heating plant now for the main plant, and we drop our bill and then we see it go from here again to all of a sudden in a year we're back up to $1,200 and $1,400 a month on some of the bigger months.
I thought they had an 18% increase. Maybe that was just residential.
Yeah,
In the rate of it. But,
yeah, I didn't factor in a certain percentage to answer your question.
that
No,
somewhere, 'cause I was-
had to kind of take a guess. That's what it is.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Brian? Hand-
Yeah, two. One is on contract fees and services. Can you tell me what's that for?
Yeah.
Who's it for, and is it bid?
Well, it's a variety pack of different contracts to service different equipment. So, for example, our defibrillators, which are made by Physio Control, we have a service contract. They're $25,000 a piece, and we have a service contract on those. It provides an annual service maintenance to assure that they're operating properly, and provides a battery replacement. A battery for one of those is like $600-700 each. So they give you that with the contract. And I think that contract, Kathy, is at 17 to 21, somewhere in there? 2,200 just for that one contract. We also have a contract for our power cots. Our Stryker is the brand name, and so they come in and they provide service, make sure everything's running right, keeps liability off from us, and assures they're running properly. It covers LADTech, which is an ongoing software we use for our scheduling. It's an interactive software, and yeah, and that's substantial cost. Southern Maine EMS and their annual fee, which is based on the amount of calls that we respond to. There's a surcharge that we have to pay, and that helps subsidize training and their services. That's just how our EMS system in the state of Maine is set up. And copier maintenance, for example, and that one's pretty cheap, but all in all, it covers those, and I think there's one or two more.
So Bruce, which ones are kicking the budget from 6,350 up to 9,000?
All of them, actually. We actually kind of added them up together last year. You'll see that we actually spent to the penny or a little over on that line, if I remember correctly. It was more, if I believe. I don't have my last year
Brian,
figures, but
In
yeah.
last year's budget, there was an understatement
Yes.
townwide of contract services.
Right.
So this is just picking up
That's not
pieces.
last
It's
year.
not
And it's not a bump per se, but it's just, okay.
Right.
Last year's actual was 94.72.
Correct.
Okay.
That's it. I knew we were over. Couldn't think of the figure there.
And then the other question is more of just a general one. Currently, you're ahead of budget by about 90,000 on a
Yeah.
run rate. So just curious about, is the the February to June, what we have remaining, does that generally have a higher run rate than you would have had for the first 7 months?
Yes and no. What we do is and I was just looking to see if a couple things have come out. So dispatch did come out okay, yeah. There are certain things that will wait. So for example, under the SCBA line, that will all get expended in the spring. That's when all our flow tests get done and when any of our hydro testing gets done. Gear services, when we bring someone in to actually fix our turnout gear, we usually do that in April and May. Those things happen in the spring after our annual inspections. So in sense, yes, and what we've always done as a practice is try to hold off on some of those expenses until we know we can make payroll, maintenance, and we're going to survive the winter, because they can be pretty unpredictable. And then once that happens, then we go ahead and try to expend anything for equipment and the things we've budgeted for. And that's kind of, I guess, just the way I've always done things to assure we don't go over. I mean, it's just a control mechanism.
Great. Thank you very much.
Barry?
Bruce, on
Yes, sir.
4065 radio repair and replacement, I'm
Yes.
assuming that's the same as you just mentioned, that you only spent 1,100 and some odd dollars, and
It is. That 1,100 has just bought a bunch of batteries, and we've had a couple of radios that have been ordered. They just aren't here yet, so that hasn't come out of that account. But,
Okay.
yeah, that's another one of those. If we'll try to make do, obviously, and
All right.
if we have to suffer with something, we will. But
Did you have a question?
I did. The CMP, do you guys check into you have to go with a certain carrier, or have you checked into that?
I will
We go
defer.
to, I feed the information to Power Options, and the one thing we were able to do was to decrease, to lock into a contract for streetlights that was significantly less than CMP for delivery. I mean, we can pick who we deliver it to.
Right.
We use Power Options for our diesel, LP gas, and heating oil too, and because they run an annual bid process. So that's how we do that part of it. And then, yeah, he actually has all of our, what do you call them, the meter numbers.
Yep.
And he will say this, he'll send me an email and say, this is looking good if we can get into it today. So we do keep an eye on all of that stuff. I
Okay.
actually had a woman come in the other day who gave me her card and said she could do better than Main Options, so we'll see what she has to say.
Nope, cool.
God, that would be nice. CMP, and to touch on that too, is in our station, we're constantly getting demand charges, and it's because of the different equipment that starts up, such as our exhaust evacuation systems. As soon as you hit the ignition on a truck, this huge set of fans draws it all out. And unfortunately, there's not a lot we can do to control that, but at peak times a day, it puts us over that demand limit and creates an additional charge and an increased per kilowatt hour fee for a certain period of time.
Right.
So it's the only company I know that penalizes you for using more of their product. Most give you a discount the more you buy, not Central Maine Power.
I just know we lowered ours by going with a different carrier by $50 a month, so that's why I didn't
Yeah.
know.
And I know Kathy, and before her, Nancy was always every year, just like with the fuel, putting that out and trying to find the best buys for us.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Are we not
Anybody
talking?
else? Anybody else? Joe?
Are we talking about personnel tonight?
Yeah.
Okay. Bruce, at what point does it become, I can't find anyone, I gotta hire full-time people?
I certainly hope that it's not right now, and I know
It's
we've
getting
we've
close,
had
though,
that,
isn't it?
and it is getting closer all the time. Wyndham has kind of turned that corner, if you will, and again, don't always like to compare us with these other communities. However, that's the trend that's coming. So, particularly during the daytime, everybody's got a job. They're not here for us
Right.
during the day, and that's understandable. They do what they can with us when they're here. So, at some point, Casco's dealing with it. New Gloucester, I know we were just chatting, Kathy and I were, about New Gloucester, and they're dealing with the issue. Gray is dealing with it. So we're all in that same boat. And
Yeah.
I could see us talking and having those serious discussions in the next couple of years more and more frequently until we say, this is what we have to do.
Yeah, I mean, we have 4 students, right, from SMCC?
We do. We rely on them a
At some point,
lot.
what about
Yeah.
hiring them, after they graduate, you hire them to man the station?
Yeah.
I assume you gotta be getting close, because when you look at a budget line of, you know, $500,000
Yes.
for salaries,
Yeah.
you know, you start thinking it may be time to add a
Yeah.
one or two full-time people.
Yep, and we're always talking about it. That is discussion that we have very frequently, and we're always concerned with that, and we're concerned with trying to provide the depth in our department, which is what we'll get into a little bit later as well when we discuss the payroll plan a little bit more. But it's huge concern, huge concern.
Yeah, I mean, if you have students that you think are good,
Yeah, I know, and the problem with that is, you know, I hate to say it, some of them might, but most of them are looking for the city. They want to be busy, they want to be in a ladder truck that does twice the amount of calls that we do in a year for everything, you know? That's what they're gravitating towards.
Yeah.
They're young, they're ready.
yeah, I mean, yeah, I teach the students at UNE, and they all want to work in Portland. But every once in a while, you find one that goes, yeah, you know, it's not too bad living 20 miles outside the city.
Exactly.
So,
Anything else? Anything else?
I'd like to add to that. Most of the students, Linden students, are from away. So they come and educate here, and then they try to gravitate back to
Right.
their hometown areas.
yeah.
From away, meaning out of state.
Yeah.
I was going to make that point. The other point is that a lot of times the young people want to get into a public safety department that has a defined compensation pension program, which we don't have. So that's, if you're wise and you're young, that's something you want to do.
Yes.
One more question, if you
Yes.
can quickly, you have on-call, per diem, and standby.
Standby and on-call, same thing. Yeah, they're
Is the same
synonymous.
thing?
Yes.
So, I guess, what is the difference then between the per diem and on-call?
A per diem is someone who's actually at the station doing work. They have a job for the day, and they're there, and they'll respond on calls right out of the
Okay.
station. On call, they're home painting, whatever, but they're ready to go. So that's on
Do
call.
they get so much for being on call, or do they,
Yeah,
they know that they're on
250
call like that weekend type
Yep,
thing? Or?
they sign up on the software that we use for scheduling, so they sign
Okay.
up. Kathy puts together a schedule every month, and so I may know I'm on Saturday. It's not me, because I don't do on call, but I'm always on call. So if I was taking that $2.50 an hour shift, and I'm at home for that 12 hours in town anywhere, and I don't have to be at home, but in town and ready to go.
Okay.
And that's my commitment, that I will not sit down and have a couple cold beers, and I will be ready
Okay, cool,
Yeah.
thanks.
for $2.50 an hour, and then I go to call pay when I get a call.
Okay.
Anything else? How many full-time, oh,
One other thing. Last year, you applied for a SAFER grant, and that would provide extra manning at reduced cost to the town. Do we have an opportunity to reapply for that grant?
We do. That grant has not opened. It's coming in the next month. Fire prevention just opened, but that grant will be open, and we think, in the next month. We can apply for it again. We're going to look at a different angle to apply for it and see if we can make that a successful proposal as well. Basically, that would provide us with however many we put in for, full-time, or per diem. It would cover the cost for the first year 100%, and then it's a prorated cost for the next 3, with us picking up the 4th year 100%. So we have to be ready to make that investment, or say, that's the end of that, and we walk from it, and those people are no longer employed. So that's the commitment I think we really need to look at.
how many full-time people do we have now?
Okay, so we have 5 right now. Five. We've got one, as you see in the budget paperwork, that we haven't hired. We had approval last year for that. So we have the full-time 24-hour paramedics. We have Kathy filling in one of those 24-hour shifts, and then working a couple day shifts to fill in some administrative parts that we needed. Eric, who works part-time and fills in the other half. And then we have another position which is not filled, and the reason why is because when we went to hire Kathy's position, the union filed an impact bargaining concern, and we had to sit at the table with that. So having gotten that all kind of wrapped up back in December, that's when we made the first change, and now we're ready to make that next move and move forward on the second position. That will provide daytime coverage, and we're still working on schedules and trying to figure out what would be best. But again, daytimes right now are our biggest concern, because everybody leaves at 6 for their job, wherever it may be, and they get home at 6 at night.
I'm going to direct a question to Kathy, if you don't mind.
Right ahead.
Last couple of years, we've had discussions about ambulance collections and ambulance expenses, including drugs that were coming up for expirations and so forth and so on. It looks to me like we've got a better handle on that stuff now.
Put that paper in on top.
Thank you, Kathy.
Kathy Goslin, the deputy chief. Yes, effective last July, the hospital said we're no longer going to supply you with any drugs.
Right.
Except for our narcotics, because they don't want us to get into the business of handling narcotics here at the stations. So we've been purchasing all our own. We have been purchasing the majority of them through Maine Medical Center, through their pharmacy. They have a bank there that we can go, a drug bank that we can go and purchase our meds through. They have not billed us yet. It will be quarterly. At the meetings, the chiefs' meetings that we do monthly, they said they went to do the first bills and they were very low. So they said, well, we're going to hold off. But it's not a huge cost. We have started purchasing some of our drugs through More Medical, some of the more common drugs that we use. If a drug is due to expire, we can trade it in at Maine Med. They try to put it into their system so that it gets used up before it does expire. For the billing, January 2017, so a little more than a year ago, we did go up on some of our billing rates at the recommendation of our billing company, which is Medical Reimbursements in Wyndham. We were below some of the local charges, the other area charges. So we went up a little bit on that, and it's based on a BLS rate, an ALS rate, and then mileage. And you base it higher than what Medicare and Medicaid pays, because your private insurances pay a lot more than that. So this year we were up with that almost $20,000, I think about $23,000 in our ambulance billing that came in. That goes to the general fund. It doesn't go into our account to do that. Does that answer that? We are buying all of our supplies now. So our oxygen cannulas, all our trauma dressings, all of that. That's been 2 years. And that's been about $10,000 a year. So.
Any questions for Kathy? Thank you, Kathy. Bruce, can we move on to CIP, which in your books is page 40? I knew we were going to fumble for that one.
I put tabs on it.
Yeah. CIP should be pretty easy. You guys all set? Okay. This year, again, the ask is for $75,000, which is our ongoing funding for the rescue. And that's basically what that is. So we asked for $75,000 to go into that account. We also have an ambulance, which was due actually a year ago, 2 years ago. We made an adjustment and brought it up because the regional purchase agreement that we were under, which would have replaced it every 4 years, kind of went away, unfortunately. So we tried to stretch that one out a little bit and get some more use out of it, and it's works well so far, but it's time to look at replacing it. And so out of CIP, from the funding that's already there, from reserve rather, we're looking for $225 to replace the ambulance. So 75 in from taxes this year and 225 out from capital reserve.
That was a little bit of confusion
Yeah,
in
just
the first draft that
Yes.
I had sent out, which I think we sent out a correction on that.
I did.
So our apologies, Kathy and I both misunderstood Bruce on that, but I say that's in the area of good news, though. So that's resolved with an adjustment, reduction from surplus, significant reduction, taking us down to, I think, $10,000 from where we had been, which is quite a change, and still resulting in a budget reduction.
What's that leave us in the CIP?
Oh, well, sorry, that was for me. Yeah, with everything that's already committed, we're at $23,000 of undesignated fund balance for CIP and change. We're also dealing within that, and the reason why that ambulance, sorry, did that answer that portion? Yes. Okay. Getting ahead of myself. The ambulance cost is a little bit higher than what we've heard in the past. I mean, we've talked about 190s, 180s, around that area. New Triple K standards for ambulances are also looking at power loads, which basically, for all intents and purposes, is a hydraulic arm that comes out, grabs the stretcher, and loads it for us. It's a great thing for our providers, as it's going to avoid injury, back injuries and things like that as we get heavier and heavier patients, as well as the power lift, which helps lift when we don't have the loader there. It is transferable from truck to truck, though, to a certain point. So buying this in this first ambulance will be an expense up front, but the next ambulance, for all intents and purposes, unless the thing breaks, should be able to be transferred right to the next truck. So that same equipment will be used a couple times.
And we've applied for the grants.
Yeah, and we actually have applied for grants for that particular piece of equipment. We're not going to hear back until probably June or July, though, if we're successful in our bid for that. So we'll put in for it here, let you know about it here, and that may change things if we do get the grant a little bit. We may have to make some adjustments. Cross our fingers. Let's hope we get it. Been fairly successful.
Because that price of the ambulance at $225 does not include
No.
the power load stretcher, which is now a required piece of equipment, triple K.
My correction there. Yeah, I thought I had, so I misspoke.
Any questions on the CIP?
Marshall, one question?
Go ahead, Brian.
In the past, you discussed this with us. Are you using a 4-year rotation? You had adjusted the rotation on the rescues. Am I correct about that?
Now up to
Yes.
6.
Yeah,
So
we're
it's a
doing
6-year.
6 right now.
Okay.
But it's a heavier duty rescue that
Yeah.
we're looking at to be able to do that.
And also, we're talking with, it's a different manufacturer, and we've used them in the past in Braun. They have a great safety record. They have far improved crash tests and things like that versus what we're using. But the best part about this is we're talking with them about the potential of rechassing the box. So when it's due, coming up with the cost of the chassis only, and moving the box over and getting all new wiring and computer components put into it, they would upgrade paint and flooring, and it saves some money in the long term. So we're looking at that. It's been out there for quite some time, so it's not kind of a trendy thing to do, but they have never mastered it until fairly recently. Raymond and Kathy can tell you, in the past, has had a re-chassis, and I think you tried to sell it as soon as you got it back, because
It was
it
an
was
electrical
horrible.
nightmare.
So, yeah, and now they've kind of ironed those things out, and we're having some luck, and a lot of great luck, particularly with the better brands of truck, if you will.
Thank you.
Yes.
Anything else on CIP?
One quick.
Yes, Brian? I can see your reflection in Joe's eyes.
Well, this other Brian keeps poking me, saying, wait your turn. Okay, just a quick question. Marine One, you know,
Yes.
I see that you got that from state surplus and it went, but the replacement cost is $250K, your guesstimate. And I guess the question is
Actually,
there a possibility of other state surpluses? I mean, is that one place we just normally look anyway? And
We will, yeah. So to answer the first part, the value is actually much higher. That was what it was then, but Don can address it better. He knows how that whole thing kind of unfolded.
That's a $450,000 vote today. It was a one-off, one-time deal. I don't know what we're gonna do, but we're not gonna buy a $250,000 boat. We're not gonna buy a $450,000 boat, certainly. We're gonna keep that one. The hull is, it's a rib boat, rigid, inflatable. It's built to military specifications. I'm gonna say with maintenance and care, it could last for a generation, I hope. It'll have to be repowered with outboards. Those aren't cheap either.
yeah.
Think 2 Toyota Camry engines upright on the back of it. That's what it has, 2 130,
230 Hondas.
Toyota engines. So it's going to, and that's about half what it had on it for power originally. So it's going to need to be repowered at some point. We are going to refurb it.
Yes.
We're going to repaint it. We're cooperatively operating the boat with the Sheriff's Department. We have for years. So it's really been a great thing for the town. From I think a visibility standpoint and certainly a deterrent standpoint, and I used to get all these calls from people on the Cape around Sebago Lake talking about excessive speed, talking about all of the different bad happenings that were out there. But now having that boat out there on key summer weekends with the Sheriff's Department largely, them funding it, them operating it, we don't get those complaints anymore. So it served its purpose for a little bit of money, and in a town that has so much waterfront, to have it available to respond to the various distress calls and whatnot for public safety is also a huge asset.
That wasn't state surplus, that was federal.
It was federal,
Right, but it was acquired through federal. That's true, it was acquired
Yeah,
through federal.
acquired through.
It was acquired through
Yeah.
state surplus, but it's a federal asset. It was a Coast Guard boat.
No, I was just looking
Yes.
at what, long-term, what possible budget items we'll have, and that had 250, but what you're telling me is, it probably won't be 250, we'll figure out something else.
That was
It's close.
that was a real anomaly, and it was a kind of a combination of things, including intervention by Senator Collins. There was a lot involved in that one.
Okay.
That's not going to happen again.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
If they had been paying attention, that boat would be in California. They weren't paying attention.
Right.
Oh, so it was good for us,
Yes.
Right.
bad for California.
You may have seen the number appear for a couple of years now in here. We've tried for the refurbishment.
Yeah.
Just to explain that, we tried working with Sabre, and they're not into painting their gel coating because they're a fiberglass manufacturer, so we worked with them on that. We worked with a couple other local boat marinas, and we had it all set to go last year, and they couldn't fit it into their barn. It's too tall and too long. Didn't know that at the time, so now we went on hold because it had to go into the water. So unfortunately, it went into season. But right now, it's at the Portland Yacht Club down on the waterfront. And if you drive down that way, you'll probably see the big orange pumpkin outside. And they're looking at how they're going to deal with it for us. So we're looking forward to that.
All right, thank you.
Yes, Don.
I want to point out one other thing. I think this has been corrected on Kathy's CIP schedule, but the 2000 Ford Utility 5 has been replaced
Yes.
with a 2015 truck that, or I'm sorry, 2016? 2016 three-quarter ton Chevrolet Silverado that came from the Public Works Department. Did not meet Public Works needs. We tried to save some money, cheap up, go gas. Did not really work for our application in Public Works. So rather than lose our, some equity in trading that in, we sped up the replacement of the Utility 5 in the fire department. And by the way, 25 years for an already surplus 100,000-mile truck is overly optimistic. So that truck was tired and ready to go. It went, and we replaced it with a Public Works truck.
It is gray, but that's all right.
It's gray. Bruce prefers red, but. And Nathan has a new truck. Nathan has a new truck.
Colored glasses.
Absolutely.
And Nathan has a new truck on order that should be here next month. That will be great.
Correct.
Great. Anything else on CIP? Okay, Chief has requested on a separate document, which we all have, adjusting its pay system for call members. We could throw that around a little bit.
I've got to dig through and find. This one I don't have on top of my pile. Bear with me for half a minute. Oh, there, thank you. Thank you. And that one right there, so I'll address that one in a second too. So basically you have it, so I'm not going to read it back to you verbatim, but our concern obviously is trying to cover costs and make adjustments. We've got several of our members, as I disclosed here, that 4 of them that are actually taking shifts and working in other communities because they pay substantially more money, which takes them out of our range. I guess I need to back up just a little bit though and say, Raymond is kind of an odd community in this respect, is that we're 52% waterfront, so we have a transient population, or a great deal of transient population. That, and we're an older community. I mean, the average age of our patients is up 62, so we're over 10 years older than the average age of a patient in any of the other communities surrounding us. So it kind of gives you a picture, I guess, of where we are with potential people who can do the hard work of fighting fire. And we've got quite a few people that are older and can still do it, which is good. It's harder to entice someone to come in who wants to enjoy their time on the lakes and with their families and things like that. So I got looking back at a couple of rosters, and there's one here from 2000. Here's the unfortunate part. I was asked about attrition rates. There are 2 active people from that roster. Kathy's one of them. 2 people from that roster. Several of them are dead. 9 of them are retired, and out of that roster of 33 people, 20 of them have moved out of town. Unfortunately, the ones that moved were our young people. They were our 20 and 30-somethings that all left us and moved out of town. Kind of help paint some of the picture, if I can. Our roster might not be that far or that different in size. We're at 25 to 30 people-ish. But when we look at it, There's the full-time staff that's on there. We've we've tried to diversify, and we have a lot of folks that live out of state. We have some young folks. Taylor Duncanson's an EMT. It runs in her family. Her dad was with Wyndham for a career, basically, and we know her. She lives out of state, but she comes back and does a shift a week with us. But we don't get her for the second call or tonight's call when we really need people because she's not on shift. Bruce Draper lives in Cambridge, Mass. Loves this job. He loves coming up. He has a place on Panther, so he's here about every other Friday he does with us, and he gives us a Saturday per diem once in a while too. So, but when he's at work in Cambridge, he's not here. So kind of see what's happened. We've got a guy who lives in Florida, and he comes home in the summertime. We aptly call him Summertime Bob. He's here from May till October, and he's gone. So we don't have him. He's in Clearwater Key, actually. So that's kind of the things we've done, along with the student program and adding some full-time staff to kind of diversify and make this whole thing work. I think it's pretty ingenious, and it's working with limited results and more limited results as time goes on. And part of it's because, one, it's hard to entice people to come out and do this work. It really is. It has to be in your blood. You kind of have to be born into it or start when you're a kid in school, and we don't have a lot of kids in this town either. So it kind of works against us. Secondly, it is dangerous, and people put their livelihoods and everything at risk when they do this work. So that's a concern. Having said that, a lot of our communities surrounding us either are right now or have adjusted their pay rates to attract the same pool of people who can do the job. And again, it's a shell game. We keep moving them around and around. In order to keep, our guys going and I think compensated for the work that they do, I made this proposal and thought we ought to be talking about it in depth. You can see some of the figures here. You can see the figures that Rita put together, and there are some big discrepancies from some towns, and there are some smaller ones, or even we may be ahead of some of them still. And I know we are ahead of like a New Gloucester as far as pay goes. They are putting in for a pay adjustment. Poland is lower than us, and I talked with their chief several times, and they were going to hire people this year. They went in with like 4 people to hire, and the board said, let's try compensating the people we have first, and then let's talk next year about hiring more. So they're going to try to bump them up in pay. I don't know what their end result's going to be because they're talking about it, actively, so I can't give you that. What I can tell you is that Wyndham, when he sent me an email with their pay rates on it, and Standish, and I know what the chief in Casco was trying to achieve this year with the help of their town manager, their rates are going to be above us. And so the unfortunate part is some of the communities that we worked with years ago, because they were maybe abusing our mutual aid system to have them pay their people so they wouldn't abuse us, now have exceeded us in pay rate. So essentially we're trying to compete for the same group of people. I'm just trying to keep the people we have right now so we can put together something in the future, because as Mr. Bruno says, we are headed there. There's no doubt we're going to head there towards more full-time staffing. I'd like to put that off as much as possible because, again, there's the cost of that, and we're going to take and make a lower amount of people for the same budget. And right now, if we can make this work, I can still get those call members to come back at nights and weekends, and we have the advantage of the depth of those folks being around. So we're looking at this and saying, let's throw out a $2 an hour adjustment in pay and see if we can bring our folks up to the region or close to the region, if we will. And let's discuss it. So here we are, and I'd be happy to answer or try to answer questions.
Questions?
Is this proposal reflected in this budget, or this would be in addition to it?
This will be an addition.
It would be a supplement if
Yep.
you decided to do this or some version of this.
Yep.
It's not in there, and there are a couple others that are also in the public works area that are not in the budget. They're in there for discussion purposes only, I guess.
Yeah. The total, as we said, if the bottom paragraph's about 13,500 of impact. So.
Any questions on that side of it? Yes, sir.
What is the cost of a full-time employee on an hourly basis?
On an hourly well, right now what we're paying them, and you can see some of our full-time employees, so they're running between $16.48 and $18.23 for a paramedic firefighter, which they're going to ask for an adjustment as well. We meet 2 days from now. Yeah, 2 days from now for their negotiations to start. It is low, and that's the union employees, correct, that's those folks. That is low in comparison to the area too, but we've been fortunate, we've got a stable base right now. I've got one who's a retired Portland guy who said he'd give us 3 years, I think that was 5 years, 6 years ago now. I wouldn't surprise me to have him say, you know, it's time to start enjoying things and, you know, I'll be done, but right now it's stable, so.
But that's your hourly compensation, not including benefits.
Not including benefits.
So add another 40%.
Yep.
Right, for benefits.
So looking at 55.
How much staff would you require to be, you know, you have 30 members. How much full-time staff would you need to fully, you know, cover everything 24/7?
Okay.
16 would give you 4 on a shift.
Yeah.
So to follow regulations from NFPA, you need 2 in, 2 out. So you'd need a minimum of 4 per shift. That gives you 16 to cover 24/7. And that doesn't include holidays, vacation, sick leave.
Callback, which we'd have to address.
Or administration of that.
Old Town runs a system where they have 5 plus admin on. So 5 firefighter, paramedic, or EMTs during the day. And this is the city of Old Town. So there are very few volunteers up there. And they have their 2 chief officers during the day shift that will also enter in and run calls. But their other platoons are on callbacks. They have a residency or close. They got to be within X miles. And they have to respond back if they have a structural fire or whatever, and that bumps them up to, that's where that automatic 4-hour callback thing kind of jumps in. So that becomes a cost factor there to look into as well. They don't have a great deal of depth, and they operate with the same kind of premise that we do currently with automatic aid, and they're doing that up there in their model with VZ and Orono, which basically run almost the same model.
So if you had 8 full-time staff and fill in with the volunteer crew, I'll call them volunteers, but they get paid.
Call company, yeah.
You might be able to get by with that.
Yeah.
What we do right now is during the nighttime, 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., we have the 1 full-time paramedic firefighter at the station, and then 4 on-call personnel. So we have a total of 5 people on at night. Now, do we fill every night? No. And that's when you said, when do you say, I can't do it with the call company? When I do the scheduling, I have openings because nobody wants those shifts.
No one wants the 4th of July weekend.
Right, nobody wants the weekend,
which is a
the
busy
holidays.
weekend, I assume.
Exactly.
We have some concerns.
Yeah.
A lot of our call company people go off at 4 or 5 a.m. because they have to be to their job at 8 or 9 o'clock. The daytime people don't come on till 6 or 8. So we have those couple of hours where it's usually the 2 of us listening to the radio when there's a call, and we know, hey, we don't have crews on, we've got to get up and go. And then it's the same thing at the end of the day. You know, the call company member stays on till 6, but if the administration, those folks leave at 4, from 4 to 6 p.m., we're a little bit light covered also.
Yeah.
But we cover the busiest hours, which are 8 to 4.
And the students,
normally,
we're fortunate with the students during the school year, they're usually coming back at about 4:30, some of them, and they're there on weekends, but during vacations and summer break, they don't have to be. We're fortunate we keep and we retain them for a lot of that because they can pick up a few hours to do a standby shift, and $30 for 12 hours of being in the station, not so bad, you know?
I gotta tell you though, in my experience, trying to keep people happy with just giving them more money and then trying to compete with everybody around never seems to work. I mean, you just keep throwing money at it, and people will just continue to chase the 25 cents an hour more.
Called it the shell game. It is.
And
it is.
So I think we need a different solution. Not that I'm opposed to what you're doing short term, Well, I think you need a long-range plan here.
Right. I think we're at that pinnacle where, we've discussed this over the last couple of years.
Yep.
And at first, my opinion was probably absolutely not. This is, that my blood saying, this is how we do it. But more and more, we've talked about it and thought that this is probably the right way. So we're looking at that 2 years out from now, where we're going to be, and then 5 and 10 years, where we're going to be staffing-wise. We already do it with apparatus and plans and equipment. We got to look at this because this is a rapidly changing world for us. I mean, when I started, I had 14 people on my engine company in Cumberland, and when I left there, I think there was 5. So that's how big the decline's been, and that was 20-some years ago. So it's gone the same direction for department-wide now.
Kathy, when you said 4 on a shift, that doesn't include management or paramedics?
That's on the night
just-
shift.
That's
So
just-
we have the one
So we've
full-timer
got
and 4 on
administration,
call.
and we've got ambulance services on top of that.
Well, not at night.
Okay.
During the daytime, we have the full-timer on, we have the chief on, and usually an admin paramedic,
Right, pretty.
and then 2 others. So we have 5 on during the day. So we try to keep 5 on 24/7. But most of them are on call at that $2.50 an hour
Right.
versus an hourly pay.
But
The 5 people at night are the full-time paramedic, 2 fire and 2 rescue
2
personnel?
2 are assigned to the fire department at
Yep.
night, 2 are assigned to the rescue calls. Rescue is about 60 to 70% of our call volume, so those are the ones that go out more often, okay? But for our second calls, even if it's an EMS call, the firefighters have to get up and go. So even if they're on fire, or we say we need lifting help, or if it's a structure fire, everybody goes. If it's a car accident, everybody goes. And then other members in town will respond because they have their radios on and will go. We've had a gentleman in town that we've treated recently that it's taken 10 personnel to take
Over an
care of
hour.
them, and we've done that twice in a month. And it's taken 10 people about 3 hours each time. It's just, you don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
question for Ms. Ricker. Is it possible to split out their payroll so that we can see salaried people and then the per diem and then the on-call, so that we can get a handle on where exactly these payroll numbers are going?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
You can break out that 1,000 category into several different categories, so we can see. Okay, can we do that starting next time around? And then that'll give us a better handle of where the salary numbers are going.
And that meeting is when?
And I'm assuming that there will be offsetting costs, full-time, more full-time, less part-time. That's the concept behind that.
Well, if you get a full-time, you can have to pay benefits.
I understand that, but this,
Probably
we're
less-
talking
less.
about salaries.
Less per diem hours then, yeah.
Right.
Like I said,
I
so,
mean, those full-time paramedics are union. Yeah, I know.
we'll
Rolf,
be back
yes,
for the 20th.
thank you.
Bruce, is there any one class that we're more in danger of losing or not losing than others? I mean, so if we start looking at where the scales go, where's the heartburn, where's the...
Well, I guess on many fronts. So we're lacking very young people who, the bulls, if you will, who can really physically do a lot of the work. And we lose capabilities in some of our retirees who are around and able to do. So we try to attract those folks, but we have one gentleman who, we can't wear an air pack anymore, so it takes him out of that firefighting element, if you will. Can still do rescue, so still in the EMS side of things, and can drive and operate a truck. So I guess if that's I think that's what you're looking for.
Well, what I'm looking for is, I mean, if we want to start looking at, your concern is retention.
Yes, yes.
If we just do an across the board increase of X dollars across the board, is that really doing what we want to do, or is it the fact that we're more worried about we're losing somebody that's got a higher level of competency, and are we better off to look at scaling based on capability?
We do in our base payroll, and I can give you that if you don't have it, but there is a scale and it's based upon levels. So an EMT gets X, an EMT firefighter would get X more, and then up the line as you go. So someone who's a paramedic and a firefighter would be marginally above the others. So that's built in as their base scale, and then we've gone to merit pay. We've adapted that merit pay into, if you will, the last year into these members as well and do their reviews. It's very daunting because there's a lot of people, but we've done that, and that's what separates them, I guess, from the base pay as you go on.
But I guess,
So does that?
where I'm looking at there is, I mean, we're worried about turnover or churn, whatever
Yes.
whatever name you want to hang on it. And if we're taking in you are investing a lot of time to get someone up to a certain level, and if they're doing that, and that's where you're losing them at that level, because now they've attuned that.
Yeah,
If we look at that
Yep.
and say, are we better off to, if we're just going to give a generic $2
I get it
across
now.
the board versus where are we really targeting on
Right.
who do we want to keep?
I would tell you this, and it's hard to predict the exact on this, but the national standard is 4 years is what you get out of a person. So generally 4 years after you get them trained and up to par, and then they're weaning out already. So to keep those people, and we do see that some, we've got members who have been here for quite a while, but like going back to that roster, there's 2 of our members that have been here for the 20+ years, and that's it, basically. So, does it help with that target those particular members? It might. People's lives change, and unfortunately, with some of the folks that we've had just leave us, Beth Clark just left us as far as a rescue member, and it's family. Her family has changed, and the dynamics changed, and work schedule, so she has less time for us. Would that $2 an hour help her? No. But it would help keep the ones, I think, that are there and continuing to do that, to do the job, if you will. So is it a fix-all? Absolutely not. I never pretended that it would be a fix-all, but I think it's a help right now to kind of stave off until we can get a good plan put together, and it'll help us maintain what we have.
Marcia?
Sir?
What about increasing the on-call pay? Would that help, motivate some people?
You mean the $2.50 an hour to be on call?
Right, to go to $5 an hour.
We actually went to that back, God, when was it? It's got to be 10 years now.
We bumped it up to $3.50 an hour. It wasn't quite 5 or 6
Yeah,
years ago
holidays
for
were $5.
weekends and holidays.
Yeah.
It didn't help.
It helped for about 3 months, and markedly went the other way.
What helps, honestly, is the time of the year.
Yeah.
When heating bills start coming and Christmas starts coming, they want the extra money.
Right.
When the summer comes and they want to be out in the boat or fishing, they're less likely to take the shifts. I don't think,
I mean,
true.
have you calculated how much it would cost to pay someone their full salary, their full hourly rate while they're on call?
well, that's like almost a full-time person.
Right.
Minus
Yeah.
the benefits.
Right.
If you're talking about 5 people a shift,
Yeah, but
we could do
if
that.
you're getting away without paying the benefits,
Yeah.
and maybe more people will step up and go, hey, $13 an hour, I may not get
I
a
want
call.
a shift, yeah.
I mean, we could look at that, Joe.
Yeah.
The thing that I would want to be careful of is then what happens when you have the structure fire and you need 15 people? Or you have the car accident where you have to
Yes, yeah.
extricate, you need a dozen people. Are those people then having their radios on because they're not getting the 13, 14 an hour? But we'll certainly run the
Yes.
numbers and tell you what it looks like.
I mean, I think you have to be creative. I think you have to look at everything,
Yeah.
I-
Poland did that for a while. We can call and talk with them and see.
And then he went right back and
Went to
he
full-time.
full-time.
Yep, on his rescue.
I think if I can jump in on the question that was just asked, where are we losing them? Or we're losing a lot of our firefighter EMTs that work full-time for other departments. They work 224s in Lewiston or something. And where are they going? They're all going to Wyndham because they can make $5 or $6 more an hour on a per diem shift. And those are the ones we want because they're trained. The students are wonderful, but out of the 4 students, usually 2 are brand new, or it takes them a year to get trained.
True.
We've got 2 right now that they're in their 2nd semester. They're not listening. We wouldn't dare leave them alone yet.
No, and for their safety,
But
they would
they're
understand
learning.
that, too.
And-
They're learning.
And they did. They all made, grades were great.
Absolutely.
But there's the other 2 that are experienced, and by the time they get done there 3 or 4 years, oh, it's like they're really great.
Just getting that experience where they can be left to do the job and be proficient, and we're losing them. You're absolutely right. So it's a double-edged sword with that. They're great to have, all of them, but yeah, it's tough.
Yes, Debbie.
Can you go back to Joe's idea of what he came up with the pay? And when you said what happens when you have 13 people that have to come out, how does that work now? Because some of those are on call.
Correct.
Does anybody who hears the call come out?
They have their pages or their radios, and they'll put a tone out. So they keep these by their bedside. They'll have a tone, and if they want to come, they come.
Yep.
Or we'll do 2nd and 3rd tones.
Well, yeah, and it texts out also by their
Cell
phone, too, so.
So would it
Two
make a difference
mechanisms.
if they're not getting paid?
No.
I hope not. I hope that's the
Yeah.
volunteer in them, that they still want to be, helpful in the town of Raymond.
Okay.
But they would
Yeah.
get their hourly pay when they came out, they just wouldn't get it to be sleeping in their bed at night.
But they would if they were on that shift.
Yes, they
If
would.
they had signed up for that shift, which is the point of enticing them, right?
Yeah,
We would have, one of the things we'd have to be careful of is we have a couple of the retirees that work for us, and they do
A lot.
maybe 80 to 100 hours a week, each of them on call.
on call. Because they're there, and
Because they're
available.
available day and night. This
Yep.
is their hobby, this is their life.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we try to not give them all the shifts, but when nobody else wants them. So we'd have to be careful with the folks like that we're not gonna pay them 80 hours a week at $12 an hour or
Maybe
something.
you go half pay, you think about half of your salary.
But they wouldn't have to sign up for 80 hours because other people would
Oh,
sign up.
maybe, hopefully that would be. a
Hopefully, they
problem.
would. That would be an excellent problem.
That brings me back to the on-call minimum hours. Pay somebody, 2-hour minimum, or whatever is reasonable, 'cause that's another way to put money in their pocket for. These retirees that come out and they're on call for 100 hours a week, do they actually go out on calls?
Oh, yeah.
They have, if you're
Absolutely.
on call, you have to respond.
Okay.
You have to stay sober, you have to stay within the town limits, and you have to respond.
Strike
And they're
one.
very reliable.
All right, Joe.
Especially the 4th of July.
They're very reliable for us.
Rob.
I mean, essentially, at the end of the day, okay, if we do this, it's nothing more than a Band-Aid right now.
Right, right.
I mean, what I would like to see is come back with some, if we have to Band-Aid, then we Band-Aid, but let's come back with a plan on how, what is a good retention device and plan, and look at what that's gonna be and how we, what we need to do and how do we get there. Because otherwise, we're just gonna be looking at this same scenario another year down the road, another 2 years down the road, and we haven't solved anything.
Right.
Unfortunately, one of the
no
big
easy
motivators
fix.
is money.
Correct.
So everybody is upping the wages, and we, as he said, as Chief said, we caused that to happen in some ways because we were, concerned over the fact that we were subsidizing in a way some of our neighboring departments because they weren't very strong. So they went ahead and kind of copied the model that the more sophisticated departments, including Raymond, had followed, and now they're very strong in terms of helping us, but they become a competitor for those the same pool of employees. So it's kind of a vicious cycle. So somebody raises the wages, somebody else raises the wages, then all of a sudden, you'd be foolish if you had the skills and you wanted to do this as a hobby. You'd probably go where you get the most money, right? So that's what's happening.
I'm
just think, Joe, what you said is we need to address it in the long term eventually anyway. We need to look at, see, how much does it cost? Would this be something where we offer full-time and people want to come into Raymond? Wow, that's a good, I mean, we need to look at this because the problem's not going away.
Right, but so I think it's a great suggestion to find something innovative, something, you know, really creative, and I think that's a great challenge, and I look forward to doing that with the folks. But money is a great motivator. That's the problem.
It is, and this is a key service for this town. I mean, this is one you gotta have. You might not be able to do some of the things, but I would
Right.
say we need to put our money where we all expect to have the fire guys come whenever the alarm goes off, or we need to, there's an accident, that they respond, and we know that they'll respond. I think it's very important, and it's worth a little bit more, so.
Yes, John.
How many structure fires did you actually respond to last year?
Don't have that's the one I don't have. There was 18 to 24.
18?
And
So really,
so-
it's the EMT, car
Yeah.
crashes.
60, 70
Woods
Yeah.
fires,
Yeah.
yeah, permits, things like that that we
structure
do.
fire out of towns, we go out of town more.
Correct.
That's usually with just a tank truck or an engine,
Yeah.
not a
Usually.
full component of people.
Well,
So we really
Yeah.
need to look at the EMT services more than the firefighter services?
Well, and that's part of the reason why myself and Pete, administrators, we put them in as a paramedic position, because we had those second EMS calls. I think we had
Correct.
160 second EMS
178.
calls during the last fiscal year.
While you were out responding to one, you
While
got the
we're out
second.
responding,
yeah.
another call comes in.
Yeah.
Yep.
And if you don't have a paramedic and you need one, you have to pick one up by protocol, main EMS protocol. And if I pick one up from Wyndham, I'm
Paying
paying
for it.
$375 to pick up their paramedic.
375.
Yes.
$375.
Not $3.
No.
So it was easier for us to say, well, we need admin, let's make sure those positions are paramedics, so they can cover those second and the serious first calls.
Yeah.
That you might need an extra hand.
It's often we take 3 people in the back of the truck because it's that serious, and we're 30-plus minutes away from the hospital. So there's a lot of interventions that occur and a lot of care that's given. So it's vitally important for us out here in the. If we were 5 minutes away, like Portland is, we could keep one guy in the back, and yeah.
Teresa, did you have a question?
No.
Is that, anybody else? Gary, yes.
What have you done for recruitment, Bruce, as far as recruiting people?
Yeah.
And maybe doing a regionalized training or something along that line?
Well, on the last piece, we train with our mutual aid departments all the time. That happens for multiple reasons, and maybe recruitment might be kind of one of those underlying things, benefits that comes from it. So we do that, but we've constantly had flyers and brochures, our signs out on 302 before we even had the digital sign. We used to put up members wanted, please apply. Things like that. We just did the video and the Facebook. It's on our Facebook and it's on the town's YouTube channel. I know on our Facebook we had over 8,000 people see it, and 3,500 watched it, and 60-some shared it, and one person has
Called up
inquired,
Casco.
and we found he lives in Casco. So we do a lot of that stuff, and we base on what we do on what's recommended from the Volunteer and Combination Officer section of iChiefs, from the National Volunteer Fire Council. I don't know what else that we really can do, and we could put banners up, which we have signage that we've put up at the ballparks, things like that. It's difficult to recruit. It really is. I mean, you have to get them a hook in them and make them interested, and of 10, yeah, exactly, maybe. I don't do that. I don't.
About 3 in the morning, that's
But
right. No, look, oh, yeah.
10 people will apply, and of the 10, we keep maybe 5 for a year, and then after that, it's down to 1 that will stay. Really, reality of it.
Part of the
So-
issue with that, and I know this is a budget constraint, is when you come in, before you can go into the back of the rescue to work, you have to be a licensed EMT or in an EMT class. Before you can work as an interior firefighter, you have to be a certified firefighter. Those classes cost $1,000 each. Okay, an EMT used to be $300. Now it's $1,000
Yeah.
with books, and it takes about 6 to 8 months to totally get done everything.
And add in the orientation time cost and the
And
gear.
right now, we do not pay
We're
for those
way up.
upfront.
Did we used to?
No.
Make it a bonus.
Way back.
Once or twice, Dennis did pay for somebody.
Yeah.
And then it didn't work out, so he didn't. So what we tell them is you come in, we'll sign you up in EMT class, you pay the $1,000. And then if you've been active for 6 months, we'll reimburse half of it. And then after 2 years, we reimburse the other half. So for a lot of folks that come in, they say, hey, I'd love to do this. When can I start? This would be a great part-time job. And then they find out it's gonna take them 6 months to get the training. And they've gotta cough up $1,000 in the front. They're like,
And,
I need the money now.
and
We
they're spending
have-
all those hours doing it,
Correct.
so. a lot
We
of-
have, yeah, they're not paid for these hours that they're doing this training. We are working with our association through a fund to try to fund these classes for them. And then the town, the department out of our budget would then reimburse the association after the 6 months and the 2 years of service. But that's one of the hardships that we've really got to look at and figure it out. Because where else do you go to work and they say, hey, you want to do this, here's your training, and you pay for it yourself before you
Correct.
start.
How many people,
Colleges do, but
how many people do you think would take advantage if you paid?
I think
Sure.
half of who come in,
About 3 or 4?
Yeah, we might get 3 or 4.
So we can't find $4,000?
But if you did that, there's a bigger problem.
Plus.
The bigger problem, we found this out with police departments,
Is retention.
is you train them and then they
Right.
immediately leave
But
to
you
the
have
other
to have
department.
some kind of a contract with them
Well,
that commits them.
and we've had signed contracts. Bob's on the association, he'll tell you, we do contracts with them. The contract is as good as the person's word.
Yeah.
It was
What
started.
actually, what actually had to
We do.
happen in the police field was there had to be special legislation to require the, the entity that employed you, somebody you trained within a specific amount of time to reimburse you. So that's what you need.
Right.
One of the things we had discussed, well, we said, well, if they go through the orientation, I do the orientation with the new members, and then I put them with a mentor. Once they complete that part, do we give them a $250 stipend that says, hey, you've made it through these 2 months, congratulations, here's a carrot to keep going.
Yeah.
Well, as far as the creativity part, I say you pay for their class and you give them a stipend to stay in class and finish.
That would be great.
When I look at a $500,000 salary line and I sit there and go, wait, for $2,500 I may be able to get someone? I would think about moving stuff around. I mean, I'm not sure it works, but
Well, no,
it's
we've-
worth a shot.
In the past, the recent past, before we actually stopped, Dennis stopped paying for all this, was we had 3 basic EMTs take the class. One of them actually worked out for maybe a couple months. We had a paramedic that was paid for. We didn't even get a full year out of him. So the paramedic class is about $8,000. That's huge. So, we started losing, and then firefighter class at $1,000, and put them in the gear, which is another, a couple grand, and it fits you, so it's kind of sized to you. Might not fit a lot of other people. That's a cost, so, as well. So when we added it all up, it was that kind of how we came up with this. But I'm not saying it's all right, but it's just because that's how the system has worked, unfortunately.
We all set? Everybody all set? Any other questions?
Thank
Thank
you
you,
for a
Chief.
good discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Okay, Raymond Village Library. Starts on page 59.
Hi, I'm Lee Walker, I'm the treasurer. Oh,
27 is the budget, 59 is the discussion. Everybody there? Okay, first off, I want to thank Lee Walker for the budget presentation this year. I think it's the first time in about 7 years that I've seen some meat to this budget presentation, so thank you.
Thank you.
Now that I've blown some sunshine,
Here comes the clown.
Well, you're sucking up to Brian?
here it comes.
Hopefully the clouds are behind.
So, Lee Walker, treasurer of the Raymond Village Library. I sent a letter that gave some information about what we're doing at the library. It gave information about where we, I gave some information about our financials from, our completed financials from last year of 2016 to 2017, and then I gave a year-to-date through November 30th. The reason why that was so early was I was trying to get all those reports into Kathy on the early side. And then the 2018-19 budget, and I put all that on one page. It's a lot of numbers. I apologize for that. I hope people were able to sort of figure that all out. I'm really here to just find out what questions you have. I could walk through everything, but you really have all the information in the letter. But I welcome any questions that anybody has. We're requesting $60,000 for the library again this year, which is the same as last year. There is another $500 that it goes through the town, through Nathan's budget.
Yeah, the
To
maintenance-
cover the
maintenance-
cost of plowing the and mowing the library. But I don't have any control over that, so I did not include that specifically in my letter. But that $500 is also money that comes to the benefit of the library, so I don't want to not acknowledge that that money is also there.
How is the town paying the library? Is it 15,000 a quarter? Okay. Any questions? Debbie?
How many full-timers do you have down at the library?
We have Allison is our library director, and then we have 3 part-timers.
So it's just one full-timer that's there?
Yes, and then we have our volunteers. We have a
Right.
very good, solid crew of volunteers.
Right. That's the one that does count.
Awful lot of crickets in the room right now. Joe?
Lee, I'll agree with Marshall. This is a very good presentation.
Thank you.
And what really makes me feel good is you're not coming and asking for an increase. First time in years, and I appreciate it.
Well, we appreciate the town, all the support that we've gotten from you guys. I know it's been a crazy couple of years, so I really appreciate your support.
Okay.
We're done?
My turn.
Oh, here we go.
Page 62.
Okay, yes.
How did we get from a 2016-17 total revenue of 150 to a 2018 budget of 104? Where did that $50,000 disappear?
150, oh.
Revenues, total revenues.
The money that came in, there are a couple of things,
Okay.
both of which were in the letter. About $18,000 of that was from our project, the renovation of the library. So we had a patron donate money to the library so that we could renovate our office. So that money came in specifically to pay for that cost.
And that was not capitalized out then? It was just taken as income and spent?
Correct.
Okay.
Well, we had to pay the bills. So we did, yes. The money came in and we.
Okay.
The expense side of that was then by our accountants moved over to an asset to be depreciated over time. The $12,000 that is highlighted in yellow about halfway down the page were investment gains that had happened over many, many years that had been held over on the balance sheet as unrealized gains that were automatically getting booked there, and when they actually should have been running through the income statement. So to clear that off, I had to pull that through the income statement.
So at this point in time, you're accounting for your investments at market at year end?
I do.
Okay. Without cashing it in, you're just taking them
Correct.
as market, okay.
Because to reconcile the bank accounts, I have to put that
Right.
increase in the valuation somewhere, so I
Right.
run it through the income statement, even though we're not spending it. So that will always provide, I mean, this is an anomaly this year with the 12,000, but it will provide a surplus on that statement that would not actually get spent.
Okay, page 74. This is your 990 for 2017. And it shows your investments of 117 the beginning of the year and 148 at the end of the year. The illusion is that taxpayer money is going into your investment portfolio.
The illusion is that, I'm sorry?
And the taxpayer money is going into your investment portfolio. Where is that 35,000 or 38,000 coming from? in investment
We
income?
did put some money into our investments to offset the losses that we had spent down that money. And based off of previous meetings here, that people were interested in having that investment account, which is the money that we have, should we have a tough year, that get built back up. So I was under the impression from these committees that that was something that they wanted us to do, and it was something that we wanted to do as well, was to actually just put that back to where it was prior to the losses.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that the library has a floor, an investment floor, irregardless of what money they take from the town. If they go below that floor, then they will ask the town for more money, is that what I'm hearing?
No.
Okay.
No. We were in a position this year because we had exceeded certain budget lines that we had
Right.
money that we could put
Right.
back in there, so that's what we did.
Okay. Anything else? I didn't mean to steal the show there. Yes, Joe?
Lee, where do you have your money invested? Just bank CDs?
No, we're going through a balanced fund through KeyBank.
Okay. What kind of return are you getting on it?
I don't know that answer, but I'd be happy to get it for you.
Well,
But it's pretty healthy.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
gotta be
doing,
pretty
it's
healthy
doing
right
well.
now.
The last 2 years, it's done
My
very
own
well.
portfolio is up about 18%
Yeah.
the last year.
Yeah.
In your annual appeal, it actually increased by 7,000.
Our annual appeal, let me just get back to that page.
Start in there somewhere, and I go, that's good. If you-
Yes, it did.
Really?
We actually had a really great year last year, and we actually exceeded this year on our annual appeal that we sent out to individuals. We have not done an appeal to our businesses yet, but the annual appeal for individuals exceeded our budget.
So, any idea why?
There are a couple things. One is we are really adamant about making sure that we write handwritten thank you notes for every donation, any size. That's one thing that I think people really appreciate. We've clarified, I think, over the last couple of years that we are not a town department, which a lot of people think that we are, and that we are responsible for raising $60,000 of our budget, actually in excess of. So I think that people now are realizing that we need that support in order to be able to continue to provide the services that we provide.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you, Kathy.
Sure. I'm just going to do really quickly some of the programs that we're doing now. This is going to be just a couple of minutes. That not only is the library as an investment for $60,000 or 70 or 75 a great return to this town. It provides the books and the videos and the access to technology for anybody who walks in our door. It also provides literacy programming. It provides community. It provides for the town, a community garden. We started a new program for the Raymond Arts Alliance, which is providing a community center for artists of all kinds, whether it's poetry or music, and creating programs around that. So the library really is becoming a community center where people can come and connect. So it's less about just the books on the shelves and the movies that we have and the audiobooks. We also have exposure to or allow access through the state to downloadable books and books at other libraries in the state, so that you can go to our library and ask for a book. If we don't have it, we can get it for you from somewhere else. So and we're also doing a huge effort with senior programming as well, to get the seniors connected to community, which is a really important piece as well. So I just wanted to sort of lay that out a little bit in terms of the value of the money that we are requesting from you. And behind that is the support from people who provide funds for our annual appeal, and all the volunteers that are behind that, in addition to our staff at the library, who are providing all these other programs as well. So it's a pretty good bang for your buck.
You think December is an appropriate time for your annual appeal?
We normally put it out in November, and we've had a very good response. We got ours out a little bit late this year, but it has been, the response has been really great. People have been really good.
Year-end for your taxes.
Anything else? Thank you very much, Lee.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, code enforcement.
It's Scott, AKA Kurt, by the way.
Yes, I had a name tag on here, but I decided not to do that today. My name is
That's all right,
Scott
we got your
DeVore.
number.
My name is Scott DeVore. I'm a code enforcement.
The story here is basically the difference in the staffing, the change in staffing. And so, although we think the world of Scott, he's doing a great job. The salary was a different salary than what was offered before. I think we had some monies in the budget before for an assistant. We've taken that out of the budget. And so that's the whole story on code enforcement, is the salary issue.
Where is the, oh, you had an assistant CEO.
We had it budgeted, but we were unable to.
But we couldn't find anyone to work the
Correct.
part-time hours.
Correct.
So we took it up this year.
Okay.
Correct.
All right.
But the code office, I would like to say that Scott has done a great job. I think it was a pretty fast process to replace Chris, who also had done a very good job for the town, but left on a fairly short timeline, and to get Scott hired and have him come in and take over, and he's been doing a really good job for the town, and very pleased with his work so far. And he may want to tell you something about that, but as far as the budget goes, I think it was kind of something that Kathy assisted him with, and there really isn't a whole lot to talk about there, I don't think.
I just gave Scott's whole speech.
Well, thank you, Scott. Appreciate it.
Unless he wants to make a budget speech, he may want to, but Kathy just told me to jump in, so I jumped in.
Yes, I appreciate that.
Let's go to Rolf first, and then Joe. Yeah.
Some of it we'll see on the revenue side, but I guess just, what's your projection on growth for next year? Does it look like permits are going to go up, down, or?
I had seen lately, this past 2 months, had a lot of shoreland zoning wanting to rebuild an expansion. Not so much beyond that. I think we've got 4 or 5 houses currently out there, with a couple more coming in from beyond the shoreland zoning. And commercial we've had 2 so far that have done well, and there's a couple of them who are looking into renovation, empty buildings now, that they're wanting to move in with the business.
What, Joe?
Ralph pretty much took my question.
Sorry.
Is there a development going in on Valley Road, the old development from like 10 years ago, 15
That has
years
been
ago?
brought up. It's currently in planning, in the early stages of planning. So far, it's moving forward, but we have another meeting for planning, but it is starting to gain a little speed. It's whether or not they follow through at the very end and start putting houses in there.
How big of a development would that be?
I know that.
It was pretty large.
It was.
Yeah.
I think so. It was around there, 27, 28 units. Some were high density, which was the elderly housing, and the other ones were going to be regular.
Right.
lots.
Okay.
But that's showing some life. They seem to be interested in it. It just, at this point, I don't know how interested they're going to be throughout the process, but right now they want to revisit it.
Okay, good, thanks.
Right.
The 5,000 for software, is that specialized software for?
Yes, it allows, well, what it does is allows me on the field that I can initiate notes for permits while I'm out in the field rather than having to come back and redo it. No.
It's just,
Yep.
I thought we could sort of combine most of the software under IT, but this is, there's a few that are specialized. Okay, thank you.
Nothing? Nothing else? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, community development.
I guess the big news there is that everything's migrated from community development to somewhere else.
Yep.
The TIF and cemeteries, except for the bus.
Okay, do we want to talk about cemeteries? Or we do want to talk about cemeteries next time around?
Cemeteries didn't migrate anywhere.
No, I'm saying, well, I thought, hold on.
I'll
Cemeteries
get you off the hook now. We can talk about it now. How's that?
Doesn't matter.
Cemeteries. Page 25.
Significant contractual change, and so it probably would be advisable to do this when Nathan's here.
Fine. Fine. You people are representing,
Yes, you figured that out.
would you like to go next? Okay. I had you on the agenda for next week, but that's okay, we'll bring it up now, so you won't come back. Yep. Whatever works for you. Okay, Raymond Waterways. It's page 77.
That was my bad. I told these guys that it was on tonight.
You do that every year, Brian. Yes, sir. Name and address and serial number and et cetera.
Neil Jensen, 315 Meadow Road, president of Raymond Waterways.
Yep.
And I'm just here to answer questions if there are any.
Wow, what did Raymond Waterways do last year?
We did quite a job on the milfoil, that's what
Okay.
we did. We have, yeah.
Go ahead, Bill.
Are you intending on running 2 boats this year?
No, for the past several years, we have been running 1 boat at a time, partly because of the expense of hiring a crew for 2 boats at the same time. And because we were having mechanical problems with both of the boats, we managed to fill in sort of with one when the other one was down. But with the help of a contribution from private party and a generous discount from the dealer, we were able to buy a new motor for the second boat, and that has significantly reduced our downtime and made us more efficient. And we really, at this point, are feeling that the larger boat is not doing anything for us. Last year, it spent its year in the pit.
Really?
And actually, we'd like to get it out of there, but haven't figured out how yet.
Anything else? Any questions for Waterways? Thank you. Oh, Debbie, sorry, go ahead.
Is it just Big Sebago that you guys are maintaining right now?
I'm sorry?
Is it just Big Sebago that you're maintaining for milfoil right now?
Yes, that's the only one of our lakes that's infested. And if I could, I'd just like to add one comment, simply because this tickles me. We have found a way to dispose of the milfoil that we remove by taking it to Pearson Farm at St. Joseph's College,
Oh, cool.
where they compost it. And they produce vegetables for the college, for Pineland Farms, for a number of stores in the local area. So if you live in Raymond, there's a good chance that you've eaten vegetables that were grown on Sebago milfoil. And this pleases me, not just because...
Is that going green?
We've relieved Public Works of the job of going down and collecting the milfoil and dumping it in the pit, and we're also putting it to some good purpose.
Good.
Very good.
Thank you.
You did your part. Okay, thank you. Assessing.
The big news there is that we have a new 3-year contract with Kurt LaBelle, who has also done, I think, an exceptionally fine job for us. And so I don't believe we had any changes since about 2011. So that's a negotiation, and I think he's proven himself to be a very good assessor, contract assessor.
Computer upgrade.
Oh, the computer software upgrade is another area of change. Thank you, Kathy.
Are there
And that's something that has to
in
go
the
ahead.
contract every year?
It's a flat contract.
It's a flat
Flat,
contract for
flat.
3 years at the
Yeah,
new rate.
right.
Right.
15.
I see the hands over there, but I'm not the guy.
I see one hand.
There are two.
Just in your overall letter to us, Don, you've got, okay, this is a reduced level of undesignated fund balance from last year, et cetera, anticipated increased valuation.
Yeah.
And I would say, based on what?
Oh, real estate.
The state.
Yeah, based on-
Taxable.
But we're saying more.
Based on permits.
Newer.
New development and permits.
Just like-
Because as you know, anybody who takes a building permit, they always declare, 100% and then of what they believe it's going to be, right?
Yeah.
So what we take is we take those permits, and because we take them at face value, so to speak. But normally when we go out and we look at what's in the field, we're going to see a significantly different number on the upward side.
Yeah, no, I
So when we
understand.
give you an estimate, it's on the conservative side, typically.
No, but the key is
The key is permits.
Yeah, and we're increasing. We're just like you
Well, I mean,
said.
I actually, I don't know if you want it or not, but when we get to administration, I got like a little quick outline of stuff, but basically, the town's valuation, if you look at the table
Yeah,
in the
I've seen
budget, has been steadily increasing despite,
Yeah, right.
the economic doldrums of the rest of the world. So
Right.
that's good news. And the other piece that's really good news, and so I can skip, I guess, that some of the
Yeah, you get
stuff
27
later.
new
But
houses.
the other thing that's good news, of course, is the mill rate has been, thanks to you all, the budget committee, the select board, the mill rate has been, I think, pretty flat
Yeah,
overall.
it has.
And I think that's a pretty exceptional thing, really, when you think about it. There aren't many towns that can show a 10-year history like Raymond's, so that you should be commended for that, and the staff as well. So my summation, now I'm going to my Reader's Digest punchline on the whole deal here, and that is, there's nothing but good news about this situation that we find ourselves in.
Yeah.
We see ourselves with increasing valuation, we have our expenditures under control, our revenues are increasing, the town is in great financial health, it's a robust economy. Nothing but good news here, I say.
Other than figuring out more salary for the fire department. No, that's good, thank you.
Yeah. You have some choices to make, obviously, but
Oh,
but it's
yeah.
all good news.
That was strong punch.
Ryan,
Sorry, one,
feel it.
You just called on me.
Yeah.
I apologize.
Pay attention, will you? Pay
I'm
attention.
sorry. Too many Brians. Software, $10,000 a year on a regular year upgrade bumps that dramatically. is this vision appraisal software, or what is
It
it
is.
that this is doing?
It is, from what Kurt told me, and I'm definitely not an expert on this, was that they were gonna discontinue the version that we have within 24 months. So it's pretty much take it or leave it.
That's the mandatory part. We
That's
gotta
the
move it over.
mandatory part.
And what's the take it or leave it? We're staying with vision appraisal, but it's their upgrade? I mean, that's a significant chunk of change.
Right, and there'll be another piece of it will come next year, too.
So I have to ask the question, have we looked at alternative software
What you have is a
solutions?
proprietary system there. You have a vision appraisal system, and then you have vision software. So I certainly could look at a revaluation, which is exponentially, more expensive than buying the software module update. Right now,
Yeah.
the quality rating of our property, valuation data is good. It's still in good shape. So they sort of have us held hostage in a way,
Right,
because we bought their system, and now we have to keep updating with their software, which has not been something that they've nickeled and dimed us with over a period of time. But I'm thinking they're looking at us and saying, here's a town that's 10 years, whatever, no revaluation, and
It's, well, almost all the big players use Vision for
they
their-
do.
for
They
their
do. So,
thing.
but I'm just saying, the only way you're gonna get away from them.
This is a major upgrade for everyone. It's not just for us.
Okay, but you're not gonna get away from them unless you go with somebody else. You're gonna have to buy their modules.
And
You're
then
gonna have
port
to-
it all over and all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff, okay. All right.
And they haven't, it isn't something like they've been doing this every year,
Yeah.
And we've gotten good mileage out of this reval, really good mileage.
Yeah. Do you know, that was one of the questions I had as long as we're here. What percentage are we at of full asset, fully assessed value? Do
I
you
can
have
get
any
that
idea?
for you, but I think we're still right around 100.
101.
Yeah, right around 100%.
What does that have to be, 110 before you have to
Yeah, it's
do
come
it?
down some, but we're still in good shape.
Okay.
101, Joe says, I would say, yeah, sure.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, have they had upgrades to the software that we have just not
No.
purchased? No. So this is our old one, we're getting rid of it.
We're not gonna,
50,000.
they give you a
They're not gonna
timeline,
support
as to
it.
they're not gonna support.
Right, that's what I'm saying, they haven't nickel and dimed us with this,
Right.
but we've been 10 years or whatever, more than that.
More than that.
More than that, yeah. So it's not, I don't think it's unreasonable that they need to update the software. And I think people find the software easy to maneuver and utilize. We don't get any complaints about it. A lot of people utilize it online.
And it is gonna have some significant upgrades in it also.
We're also paying a license of $10,000 on a regular year, right? I
Yes.
mean, it's not like we're getting this, like,
It's not
10
gonna
years
go-
ago, they gave us to us, and then we've been using it for
Oh,
free
no,
ever since.
No,
No.
but I'm saying that was part of the deal though originally.
Yeah.
And as Kathy points out, I don't know a community, we were, I wouldn't say an early adopter, but we were probably one of the first group of towns they did. But now, I think you'd be hard pressed to find any town in southern Maine, certainly, if not Maine in general, that wasn't done,
Okay.
by them.
Yeah.
Years ago, it was Cole Air Trumbull Company. Today, it's Vision. So there's a dominant player usually, and it's
Yep.
Vision.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay? Moving on to administration.
I kind of gave some of my So
Can we hear it again?
All the sizzle is going.
If you want, I can do it, but I don't think you really want that. Let's see, so as far as okay, I won't do it. You say no?
Do what you wanna do, John. Do what you wanna do.
All right, so you have a bunch of goals, right? The select board has some goals, and so this is not all in administration, but we have met the goals, I think. We have a modest increase in our CIP roads of $20,000 to $320K. We got a reduction in the mill rate with this budget, which I think is a significant thing. It's certainly a core services-driven budget. There are a few things outside the budget that you need to look at and decide whether you want to, adopt them or not. The public safety pay, the mechanic position for public works, which will come up in the second session. The idea Joe would like us to look at, and I think it's a great idea to look at assuming more of the winter road work. So those are some things you can definitely think about as we get to them. Undesignated fund balance is surplus. We have a total of $2.2 million right now. We got $482,000 exceeding the current balance policy. We're only using $10,000 in this budget. Now, that wasn't the plan. Of course, the plan was that we were going to use significantly more, but through a happenstance, a happy error, we ended up at the 10,000, which is a nice place to be. So, and then on the revenues, we have increasing estimates for excise tax we're increasing our estimates for excise tax by 70,000. Fire rescue collections going up. We're decreasing the CEO fees, based on experience. We're a little over optimistic on that. Dedicating prior year's health benefits balance to the proposed budget at 52,000. On expenses, we have a reduction in debt service funds in the general fund as the public safety bond is paid fully. The merit pool reserve was replenished back up to the 55,500 with a $26,000 in this budget. The TIF, we got increased capacity in our TIF, so we've moved some stuff into the TIF. Proposed budget uses all accumulated TIF reserve funds in the amount of 56,000. There's a $100,000 reduction in debt service requirements in the TIF, as the water line and the 302 improvement project bonds are also both paid off. We moved $39,000 in community development spending to the TIF. $75,000 in TIF is being used for CIP roads. So as I said earlier, I mean, I can't say enough about the work that the department heads did on this. Kathy did on it. We all worked together, and we tried to come up with a budget that met or hopefully even exceeded some of the goals that we were given. And I think this is a great starting point budget. I think that's what Joe called it, a starting point. A great place to be at for a town. And repeating myself now, there aren't many towns that are in this position that we are. And so truly it's about making the choices you want to make to move the town forward and doing it responsibly. And I think the taxpayers should be very pleased with the work that you've all done and the town's done over the last 10 years. The proof is in the graphs there, in my mind.
Questions? Brian?
One quick one. Did you give us a bond schedule? Is there a separate
schedule?
bond page schedule?
Oh.
It probably is here. I was just realizing I hadn't.
I don't know.
I saw it somewhere.
I can't say, but I will look for it. And
Okay.
if not,
I think I've
I'll
never
send
seen
it
it in
out.
there, yeah.
All right, I'll take another look. Sorry, probably my oversight.
Joe?
Why are we replenishing the 55,000?
Well, I thought that was
What's the thought behind that?
What's the thought? Is that you're not gonna, well,
I think the thought was just to have some consistency. You don't necessarily have to do it. But I think we established at that level, and we're kind
Well,
of.
I know we set aside 55,000 because it was the first year that we were doing
Yeah,
this
it was just
pay.
sort of something that we
And
picked
we-
out, but it's probably not something that we would need to do right now, but it just seemed like a logical thing to do, but maybe you don't want to do it. I mean, the budget's in good shape. Maybe there'd be a time when we're not in good shape, and it'd be nice to have that reserve, and we could go a few years when we don't have the capacity to replenish it and need it to.
So your suggestion is this goes into a savings account for?
It's, yeah, I guess, but he's right. I mean, we don't need it this year. You could skip this year, sure. He's right.
I don't know why you would replenish it. I just.
Especially when we're
I
overage in
get
the
the impression that that was the idea, was that it was gonna be a fund, and maybe we're just totally
I
wrong.
don't know, I remember the 55,000, we said, okay, first year, let's see
Right.
how much we
Placeholder,
spend.
yeah.
And then you didn't even spend half of it, really.
Right, but that also doesn't mean that's first year. You don't know what you're gonna do in a subsequent year. I don't think we're gonna go crazy. You don't know that. I don't believe we're gonna do that, but it really is, I guess, something that you have to philosophically decide whether you want to have that amount of money or if you wanna have a lesser amount of money. It doesn't really matter, I guess. It could be cut, I guess.
yeah, wait, and you could also use it for what's come up here. You have another pay increase that you're sort of looking at, and you could use that fund for that.
Which pay increase are we talking about?
The fire department.
Fire department.
But they have their own line on
Right,
salary.
right.
So that merit pay doesn't come out of that except for the department heads, right?
Well, we could cut, but we could use it for the fire department.
Yeah, you can.
Cut it and put it in.
Yeah, you can cut, 10,000 and move it to the fire department.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
34 is the bonds payment.
34 bond
Thank
payments.
you.
Thank you, Teresa. Anything else? Yes, Frank?
No, I'm probably reading this wrong, but in the town hall, 7,000 for cleaning weekly? you know? That
We
moves
used
from
to have
some,
it cleaned by what we had was the school department cleaned it for us on sort of a quid pro quo, you know, we had a.
okay, because I saw it was
And then,
zero
and then
last
we didn't,
time.
I don't think we had it budgeted, it was the issue, correct?
It was in contracts and it wasn't in
I figured you
salaries,
moved
so
it somewhere.
it
Either
needs
that
to-
or the place
it
was
needs
really
to be
dirty. Okay.
Anything else? All right, I have my one stupid comment of the session. The digital. No. I saved this for the new session.
I saved this for a new session.
Digital sign.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I have two negative comments. One is a black or a dark background is very hard to read. And two, I think there are too many words on there for people that are doing 75 miles an hour down 302. Okay. When you come around town hall, there's a couple of, and I hear this from my 80-year-old neighbor. It's not me making it. You know that, right? Okay. But I think there's too many words, and I think darker backgrounds detract from whatever message we're trying to send. And that goes for.
Are you talking about both sides?
I'm talking about both sides. Or my neighbor is talking about both sides.
Although I have to say, in comparison to some of the other LED signs I've seen,
Right.
it's pretty good quality.
It is good.
Yeah.
That orange one
good,
at
yeah.
Halloween,
Yeah.
that
Some
stands
of
out,
those, and
definitely.
some of the messages that you had were very good, like during the time when all the power was out, that you could go to the school for showers. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that really would
That was
make
the
a
only
difference.
thing in
to
town that was working because it was on a generator.
And one of the nice things about that is I can maintain it from home.
Perfect.
Oh, from home, I knew you could do it
So
from
I
your desk.
didn't have to navigate the road, so it's.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
Okay. Anything else on administration? Yes, Ralph?
I mean, since you broached the subject of the sign, I mean, we've had a discussion in the past in regards to, do we put a second side on the one here? And where are we on that discussion?
Well, there have been a couple of people who say it looks awfully odd the way it is now, and that it doesn't make any sense to. I think at least one of those people is here. Yeah. It looks like it's not finished, not finished.
It's
not-
It looks like it's not finished.
If you're coming from 85, now listen, if you're coming from 85 and you're coming down this way, how do you even know that this is the town hall?
Rear view mirror.
No, you're supposed to be looking forward.
There's nothing on this side of the sign at all. It looks unfinished, I'm sorry.
No.
That's my
It's a
complaint.
good comment.
It just looks unfinished.
What I don't recall was what was the price for adding the backside to that?
Like another 30. I got this one.
It's in there somewhere.
No, it's not. I didn't find it.
Yeah, you're right.
Because I mean, because where my thought process is going on that is that, do we have enough headroom in the TIF to add that into the TIF so that we're not taking a budget hit on it, but we're accomplishing, and it meets, it meets the intent behind TIF funds as far as development, community development and things of that nature. So do we have headroom in there to do that and get that squared around in there?
In the TIF. Another issue I remember on the backside of the sign was when the snowplow plows the snow, you can't see it.
Well, that's what the thought was, but I mean, when you look at it, if you look at it throughout where we are through this snow season, you'd be.
That was one of the arguments, Ralph.
Well, we didn't know what it was.
Yeah, we didn't know, so now we've got a year there, so, if you had, even if you had during the, a bad season or whatever, 4 or 5 weeks where you couldn't see it, but that still says then you have 48 weeks where you can see it.
If it looks unfinished, can we not just paint the words Raymond Town Hall on that
Anything.
backside?
Are you volunteering?
If that's the question, sure, I can take a shot at it. I mean, if that's the question of it being unfinished, that's a different question than adding another LED sign. LED is only one way to solve that unfinished question.
We haven't asked them for a quote for putting vinyl lettering on the back. But it isn't inexpensive, but it is nowhere near an LED sign either.
It'd be pretty tacky.
Is it even equipped to do an LED on the back now?
Yes, it can have an LED on the back.
Done.
I thought one
I
time,
mean, to me, I would go, either leave it as it is or go LED. I wouldn't put vinyl letters
would be too tacky.
on the back.
Right.
but isn't it a possibility of, it's a safety issue of now you're reading this sign, you're coming
Going
right down
downhill.
in the most dangerous intersection that we've got right here, right there as they come out. It's dangerous enough now as they come flying over the hill, and they're reading the sign, and
Yeah, the
they're not
other-
paying attention.
That's true. The other thing, and this probably only bothers me, it doesn't even bother Kevin, but it's a few degrees cocked too, because we kind of turned it so it would be visible,
Yeah,
you know,
right.
the
So
way
the
we were
cars
coming up the
coming
hill.
that way, yeah.
So it's not square to the road, and that really bothers me, if you
So if you put some on the other side, it'll be,
So I said, what would it take to turn it 2 degrees or whatever, and that's a big deal.
Well, they just shim out the other side.
Just put it on a rotary shim.
No, it's in concrete. You're not gonna move it.
We don't need to move it, we just need to finish it.
No, you can certainly put another sign on the back side, you know, another panel.
Okay? The TIF we're going to address again next time. So insurance. Insurances.
Insurances,
Insurances.
I put 2 schedules in the back so that you could see where how I came up with that. For the, take the easy ones first. On the other insurance, the agent indicated that because we had a, what was it, 92? We had a $92,000 claim this year.
Well, actually, it was more than that, but because we're probably not going to put the tower up, it's gonna end up being around a $92,000 claim in total. With those additional monies we could have got if we re-erected the tower.
So her first indication to me, which she said is not final yet, was that we could expect a 6 to 8% increase. And that's, so I picked 6, thinking that not all of these are gonna get hit with an 8% increase, so, I mean, it's an estimate.
Yeah.
It's still well below what we had, our actual in 17 was about 65,000. I've got a budget here of 39,000 for the regular insurance, so.
What page are you on?
I'm on 46.
32 and 44.
What was the 92,000 claim for? Was it the
It's for the tower.
It's how that's spelled on town hall.
Here's one of those, what you call, kind of fortuitous events. We were going to have to pay to remove the tower, and it was a significant cost. The tower was still in service, it was still being utilized. The storm took the tower down onto the town office. Luckily, no one was, injured or killed. So we got the tower down, and of course, but the tower was in service, so it was insured, so we were able to get the settlement on the tower. So now we're going to cooperate with the school, utilize their antenna, hopefully, and put some repeaters on there for the public works and the fire department, so we won't need to put the tower back. So therefore, we leave some money on the table that would be related to the re-erection of a new tower. So, but it did settle for around $90,000. So if you were, whatever insurance, here's a new company, first year. This is a book of business you don't want, Town of Raymond, right?
All right, insurance has been divided up, I guess, on pages. So on page 32, are we all set with liability, unemployment, workers' comp? Before we go on.
Workers' comp is detailed on page 45.
Okay.
The regular keys is detailed on 40, I say keys, but it's Kai's, I guess. 46.
Health insurance and...
Right, I'm just talking about the calculations that I did are on these other pages. And then page 44 was basically the health, life, dental.
That one I'd like to go to if we can.
Sure.
I don't fully understand it. So,
Any questions? Brian?
thank you.
sorry about that, Mr. Chair, I apologize. So the current health is 189,000. You're adding 5% estimate. What's
That's just an estimate increase of what?
increase, right? What's the $59,000? That's the next number down?
Oh, that's our HRA. Sorry.
And
That's
also,
the maximum that's the maximum potential of the HRA.
Okay, so that would be paid out by the town for the HRA?
If everyone claimed every dollar they could on their
Good.
HRA, it would be
It would be, okay.
59,000.
Okay. And then the unfilled full-time,
Right.
what does that mean? Sorry.
Because Bruce has one unfilled position. So
Okay, so that would be incremental to the amount. Okay,
right,
I get
so I'm, that would be at the annual premium, that would be the entire premium, and it assumes, employee spouse.
Okay.
So we're in that range. And then, the next one is the $10,000 is what we expect employees to reimburse
To withhold,
us
so
for.
it'd be a reimbursement, okay.
Yeah.
So if I take all of that, right now, on page 31, health insurance is running at 52% on a run rate after 7 months, which would be 58%, so you're a little ahead. So my question is, you're using 270, which is the number from last year. Can we take that number down to a more realistic of where you think it's going to end up versus the budgeted number to use as your 189,402 number, the current? In other words, you're working off, if I'm understanding this correctly, or did I do it wrong, that you're using last year's budget as your base number from which to build the assumptions for what you need as an increase?
No, yes, I'm sorry, yes, we are.
So since you're running ahead of budget, unless you see and anticipate,
Well, it's because of the HRA is only, it only gets dispersed as it's needed, so
Okay.
it depends on when people are actually utilizing, the HRA.
so you
So
still...
that would never be straight line. I mean,
All right.
obviously,
All
the
right.
premiums are gonna be straight line, but the HRA is never gonna be straight line.
All right. On life insurance, retirement, and social, you're all around 51, 52% on a run rate, on where you would be at 58 if you were, if you want to call it on budget. So those would seem to be more predictable to me. Can we utilize those numbers? In other words, actual of where you think you're going to come in versus the budget from last year to build your new number.
On the life insurance piece, which one is it? Dental and life we get from Maine School Management.
Oh, sorry, yeah, sorry, life is actually you're ahead of budget, or you're behind budget, sorry, that's not,
And life is based on life expectancy and salary rate, so that is gonna change every year. On the dental, I did a straight 5% across all,
okay.
just as an estimate. The dental and the life, she said 5, she felt 5 would be a good amount. I mean,
All right.
you can't really pinpoint.
Well, isn't that what part of the reason we have an undesignated fund balance, though? That if you need some incremental funds, that you have the undesignated fund that you can the select board can tell you in a moment, you can access that money, I believe. So why are we?
Only up to 75,000.
Okay.
I don't think this.
Because the town meeting sets what you can spend overall.
Oh, okay. So the budget, the select board can only approve an incremental 75,000 of the undesignated fund?
Right.
Well, you actually have a line,
Okay.
you
That says what that amount is?
Yeah, it's a contingency fund for the selectmen.
Okay.
Set at
Unanticipated
75,000,
expenses.
yeah.
Okay.
And I wouldn't count this as an unanticipated
No.
expense.
I wouldn't mess with insurance either.
It's pretty extraordinary when you would use that in unusual circumstances.
Okay.
We good?
I agree on the health 5%, but dental, life, and STD, very rarely do they go up 5%. Dawn is getting older. I understand that.
Well, all in all 3 of them are less than $1,000.
Right.
Also,
Yeah.
at 5%.
Dental went up 2% last year, but, the health side,
Health is probably gonna be more than 5, but.
well,
No?
not on group this year, no. Group-
Really?
Individual, yes. Group, no. Group held at about 3.8 to 4.2.
Cold, are you cold?
A little.
It's comfortable in here now, isn't
It's
it?
okay, it's all right.
Individual
down
went up
'cause he's having a hot
18
flash.
18 to
Turned on the air
Also mine.
conditioner.
Poor Kathy's
So-
sitting over
I'm
there
sorry, I missed the last
freezing.
thing.
Individual went up 18 to 25, but group only went up 3.5 to, between 3.5 and 4.2,
Yeah.
depending on what it was and who it is.
What I still don't get is why they can't give me a cost run for health insurance. That's what I really want to see.
Because it depends on when the renewal date is. They can only
90 days, right?
commit 90 days at a time. Then you're held for the year at that. But they'll only commit the rate in a 90-day increment for quoting.
Right, but why can't I see what's happened? Why can't I see my cost to actual for the previous 5 years?
Well, you should be able to.
Yeah.
Told me I couldn't.
Who told you that?
Cross told me I couldn't.
Well,
That's
What you actually paid for?
No, what my actual
experiences?
claims were.
Oh.
Experience rating, that's what I
Oh,
wanted
okay,
to see.
experience rate.
If we were, she told me if we were larger,
You can.
Yeah.
we could get it.
Yeah,
But you know they have it,
Oh, yeah, they have it.
but they just won't give it
But
to
there
you.
are HIPAA laws for small groups.
Yeah.
And you're a small group. You're only 12 people.
Large group you can get it, small
Yeah.
group falls into a whole different world. Large group you
Moving
can
right
get,
along.
large group you get that.
Sorry,
We're explaining health insurance.
I understand, I understand.
a rousing conversation.
Yes.
We put the rest of the table to sleep.
Do we still have a placeholder for county tax, or do we have a number?
Well, I have some information.
Oh, good.
I know you'll want this.
Yes.
So, as Kathy pointed out today, 3-year-old data, but basically the valuation on average for the county was 4.53%. So that's, if you look at all the communities in total, the average growth in valuation. We were at, good news, I guess, in this case, only 2% change in valuation based on state value. So it results in a $14,805 increase, 2 cents on the mill rate.
That's on top of the
Yep.
727, we're adding 14,000.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, basically running down through the list, there's very few towns that are at that level. Casco is a little bit below us, but some of them are running pretty high.
Can you repeat the number, Don? The increment?
14,805 is the actual dollar increase, 2.04%, 2 cents on the mill rate. I'd be happy, we could copy that and send that around, right?
Sure.
We'll do that.
Yeah.
Would
Why
like-
don't you
would
send
like-
it to me and I'll email it.
Right, that's
Yeah.
what I meant.
Anything else on county tax? Revenues?
I will say that the county, just quickly on the county, we very rarely say anything really great and positive about the county, but I will say that they've now jumped on board with the broadband initiative, and they're actually trying to participate with the towns out this way, the Lake Region towns that are working on trying to bring higher speed internet to our region. And so the county has applied for, and I would think that would be a pretty good bet they'll get it. They've applied for a community development block grant to study the part of the implementation of that initiative and to come up with strategies and funding mechanisms and just basically the framework around how we might accomplish this to assist us. And so since they administer the funds and control the funds, and they're going to apply for a community development block grant on our behalf, so that's a good thing.
Good.
So I'm happy with the county.
Is Kevin
yeah.
going to go through some broadband issues in his presentation? Will Kevin approach the broadband issue in his presentation?
He can. Kevin's been very active. Kevin's been going to meetings with me. He can. We can tell him that. He can tell you, what he can tell you is why broadband.
Yeah, why don't you tell him to be prepared for questions, I think.
Yeah, I'm more in the category of what we're doing.
Yeah. Okay, anything else, revenues?
Increase in excise tax is a big part of it. And let's see. Yeah, Joe got a Jaguar, so if everybody in town bought a Jaguar, we'd be in good shape.
Those people driving Priuses appreciate that, Joe, I'm sure.
I have to make up for their lack of excise tax.
Yeah, my Mercedes 8-banger, same thing. Okay, we're pretty well set. Public comment? Okay, seeing none, we will adjourn or recess for a few minutes to allow those people to leave that wish to leave, and then we will continue on with some budget business. Recess is ended. This is the second part of the Budget Finance Committee for February 27th, 2018. I would like to have an motion to approve the minutes of January 23rd.
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Okay, under new business, we have ordinance changes. And the first one is the reduction of the committee size from 9 to 7 elected members. I could have a motion to approve that.
Motion to change the number of committee members from 9 to 7.
Second.
Any discussion? Yes.
This is with the understanding that current sitting members can remain on the committee until they decide to leave?
Yes.
Or until the next election?
Yes, no, not until the next election. If they wish to rerun, great. If somebody decides not to rerun, then that seat will be closed. The word is attrition. We'll let attrition take care of it, okay?
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question?
Yes, you may.
Should there be something in the ordinance that makes that official? Because right now, it appears that you would instantly go to 7, not that you would allow attrition to get you there. Just a thought.
And I agree with your thought. And I agree with, maybe you and I can come up with the wording, but I think it would be, the membership will not go below 7, something like that. And then if people resign or choose not to rerun, then that would take care of it. But membership should not go below 7, or something like that. If everybody's okay with that, Sheila and I come up with the wording. Okay, all in favor? Okay. There's an item that didn't appear on some agendas but appears on mine, and that's the election of a vice chair. We have discussed that. It's a practice that we've been doing for at least 5 years that I know of. So if I could have a motion to put that in the ordinance, the election of a vice chair.
Make a motion to add the election of a vice chair to the...
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Thank you. The third item is the elimination of the school board chair as an ex officio. This was put in a long time ago, and in 2007, when the school split off and formed the RSU 14, the school chairman hasn't been in here since, school board chairman. And so I would like to eliminate that provision.
Motion to remove the school board chair as a voting member of the Budget Finance Committee.
Non-voting member.
Non-voting member.
Right. You never had a vote. Second? All in favor? Okay, and the last one is the amendment to the voting rules as written. If you have received Mr. Walker's proposed revision, I don't know, Brian, would you like to read that into the record, or?
Sure.
Okay, go ahead.
This would be instead of letter E on section 6.
Right, 6E.
6E. A majority of the board constitutes a quorum. If a quorum cannot be obtained, the meeting may be adjourned until a time and place certain. Any action of the board shall require the affirmative vote of a majority of its non-recused attending membership of not less than 3 members unless otherwise provided by law. Abstention shall be limited to conflicts of interest which shall be stated prior to taking the vote. No member of the Budget and Finance Committee shall vote on a budget item in which the member has an interest.
Okay, this recommendation, again, is to substitute the language that now exists on 6E, the voting requirements. Do we have a motion to approve?
There will be discussion, correct?
Yep.
So moved.
Motion to, you're moving for discussion?
I'm motioning to,
Discuss. Yeah.
do we need a second?
Yep, we need a second.
Second.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Discussion. Bob?
Brian, I want to understand with the recused voters, with those eliminated recused voters, it would be a simple majority from the remaining voting members?
Yes, but it has to be at least 3.
Has to be at least 3.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the
So you'd
difference in
never go-
yours is, this one says 4, yours is 3, that's the difference.
There's a couple things I think that are different. One is that this takes into account the concept of being recused, because this one would actually still maintain the need for the 4. With the current scenario, as the original proposal, the current scenario is you can have a situation where with 7 people, let's just say 2 are absent, 1 is recused, now you have 4 members, you have to have a unanimous. So you could have 3 people in favor of something and 1 person against it, and the motion would fail, and that just seems to kind of fly in the face of what we're doing. I think the other thing that was added was the abstention shall be limited to conflicts of interest. We talked about that, and that was that idea of, and what I was trying to do is address that concern, which I thought was a justified one, that if people start to kind of, not, that we need to have everybody here, we need to motivate people to be here. So the thought was that between the language that talks about removing someone and that idea if you're here and if you're not recusing yourself, you are expected to vote, I hope it would address that. And the last comment I'll make, which is this language, with the exception of the abstention and the recuse, is the exact same language that's in the Board of Selectmen. I mean, I literally lifted it and took it. So that there's a consistency between what's in the Select Board ordinance and what's in the Budget Finance ordinance.
Okay, let me address that last point. I've said all I'm going to say on the other things, but that last point. I'm not comfortable with taking away somebody's right to recuse themselves for a reason other than conflict of interest. And I think the possibility exists for that. Also, if it's in the Select Board's ordinance, it doesn't make it good. And keep in mind, that has not been tested. Okay? So I'd be very, very careful with that one. I can think of 6 or 7 different scenarios where somebody would want to recuse themselves, but not for a conflict of interest.
Well, in that case, it's a really good point, and maybe the solve that I had for that concern about people not showing up to vote is one that I kind of over-responded to. I think that line could be taken out.
Well, we're not at a point where we're going to change this document. It goes as it is.
Okay.
It's up or down.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else? All in favor?
And what we're voting on
is to substitute substitute your language for 6E.
Okay.
Okay?
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question?
Yes, you may.
The last sentence, and I believe Brian had the same last sentence as in currently in 6E. No member of the Budget Finance Committee shall vote on a budget item in which the member has an interest.
That's correct.
Is that redundant? Because we're also adding, or the proposal was to add, F, all members will abide by the rules of conflict of interest pursuant to 30A, MRSA 2605.
I'd like to leave the document as is, because that's the way it was presented for vote. As an aside, I will say, and you know that the Select Board is reviewing all ordinances. There is also a lot of discussion on what is a conflict of interest and what isn't. And I think they're coming to a conclusion where a broader definition of conflict of interest may be more appropriate than it exists now. But I'm not trying to put words in their mouth. But I think that's the job for the selectmen, and our stopgap here is to flow that into the other sentences in the ordinance. We comply with their conflict of interest. This is a way for this committee to take charge of its own future. We could do nothing and let the select board do what they wish with this ordinance, and I am also uncomfortable with that, So, we're back to square one. All those in favor of allowing Mr. Walker's language replace the language as proposed in 6E? 1, 2, 3. Motion fails. Public comment? I see none.
Can I just say something?
Yep.
Brian, I just want you to know the reason why that last sentence bothers me, just
Yeah.
because I think anybody could
Religious
say-
reason is one.
What's that?
Religious reason would be one.
Right.
Seriously.
Yeah, no, you're right, but
Seriously.
anybody could say, well, you can't vote because of this. And
Right.
who's to say what the conflict of interest is?
Right.
And
on
we
any
can't
vote?
make a change in this
Right.
now, Mr. Chair? We could not put a line through that and say we're voting on this?
It's up or down right now, Brian. You know, we've beat this around for a long time.
Mr. Chair, can we try to get to an agreement among the most members possible? If that's the concern, I have no problem taking that out. And unless there's a legal reason why we couldn't make a change to proposed language, why could we not make that change now?
Because it was presented as an up or down vote. Up or down.
Okay.
Any other board comments?
What are we voting on then, sir?
You're voting on substituting this language for the language that exists, and that motion failed. The
Right,
language
so
that
now what are
exists-
we going to vote on?
Nothing. The language that's in the document survives.
This document meaning the proposed language?
Right. Yeah.
Have we voted on this?
We don't need to vote on that.
We haven't
because we're not
voted on
making-
these changes yet.
We voted not to change it.
We voted, no, there's no change. We're not making a change. That's the existing language. We're not changing it.
So how do we better prepare ourselves next time when this goes around?
There's a provision in this document that allows you to set the voting requirements at the first meeting of each year. We had the opportunity to do that in November. Okay?
So there are other changes in here, sir, that we have not voted on. For example, that members need to be residents of the town of Raymond, et cetera.
That's in the original document, I believe.
I'm looking at the revisions to the original ordinance, and that's a change.
Are you referring to section 6C?
Yes.
I believe? That isn't a change to the intent of this, it's a change to tidy up the language.
Right.
It's using, instead of using who are, must be is more, I've dealt more with state statutes than I have with ordinances,
Okay,
I'm
let
sorry.
me make
So that's-
another issue clear here. We talked about gender neutralizing the language and cleaning it up so it complies with existing laws, and that's one of those changes. We're not gonna nitpick the words. Anything else for tonight? Motion to adjourn.
So moves.
Thank you all. Thank you all.